2601. 2602. 2603. 2604. 2605 and 2606. Senator Anduba.
Mr. President, most distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Anduba, representing Anambra South Senatorial Zone. Mr. President, I rise to move that the votes and proceedings of Wednesday, 25th of April 2018 be adopted as so moved.
Senator Jeremiah Sini, Plateau South.
Thank you, sir, Mr. President. I am Senator General Jeremiah Tumbutu Seni, Plateau South. I rise to second the motion that the vote and proceedings of Wednesday, 25th April 2018 be approved. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the votes and proceedings of Wednesday, 25th April 2018, be hereby approved, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Votes and proceedings of Wednesday, 25th April 2018 is hereby approved. Announcements. Bill for Conference, Industrial Development, Income Tax Relief, Act Cap 17 LFN 2004. The Senate passed the above bill with difference, and the following are the conference members: Senator Sabu Mohammed, Chairman; Senator Boniface, Member; Senator Effion Nelson; Senator Suleiman Nkui; Senator Shaibu Isalau as Member; and Senator Victor Umer as Member. Please, Senators, kindly meet with your counterparts in the House of Representatives for the conference. I wish to acknowledge staff and students of Brookstone International Foundation School, Mabushi District, Abuja, who are in our gallery to observe proceedings. I wish you a fruitful observation of our proceedings. You may now sit down. Thank you. Petitions? Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, the first business of the day is presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator John Eno of the Federal Polytechnic Ecom, Cross River State Establishment, ETC Bill 2018. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal Polytechnic Ecom, Cross River State Establishment, etc. Bill 2018, SB 672, first reading.
Federal Polytechnic Ecom, Cross River State Establishment, etc. Bill 2018, SB 672, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, the first order of the day is a motion standing in my name on the executive communication from Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria on the inclusion of the USD 496,374,470, equivalent of 151,394,494,335 in the year 2018 appropriation bill for the purchase of Super Tucano aircraft from the U.S. government. Distinguished senators will recall that the request from Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief was read yesterday on Wednesday, the 25th day of April 2018. Mr. President, with your permission, I wish to move that the Senate do refer the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria, on the inclusion of the USD 496,374,470 million dollars, equivalent of 151,394,494,335 naira only in the year 2018 appropriation bill for the purchase of Super Tucano aircraft from the U.S. government to the appropriate committee for further legislative action.
Senator Matthew Rogide.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm Senator Matthew Rogide. I represent Edo South Senatorial District. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, you will recall that yesterday when the letter that was transmitted by the President of the Senate was read by the President of the Senate, I raised a point of order. And Mr. President, I crave your indulgence that I go back again to what I raised on this floor yesterday, order number 15, specifically speaking, that has to do with privileges. And of course, Mr. President, I want to seek your permission to go further to order 42, order 42 and 52. But I will start with order 15, Mr. President. Any senator may rise at any time to speak upon a matter of privilege suddenly arising, and he shall be prepared to move without notice a motion declaring that a contempt or breach of privilege has been committed, or referring the matter to the Committee on Ethics and Privileges. But if the matter is raised in Committee of the Whole, the chairman shall leave the chair to report the progress. Mr. President, I crave your indulgence so that I read quickly order number 42. And he said the matter of discussion shall, if possible, be referred to the President of the Senate before commencement of the day sitting, and the President of the Senate shall refuse to allow the claim unless he is satisfied that the matter is definite and urgent. If the claim is allowed by the President of the Senate and the leave of the Senate is given by at least 1/5 of the senators, the matter shall stand over the next legislative date. Mr. President, I go to order number 52. The notice shall not be dispensed with in the case of a motion or in respect of any other proceeding for which notice is required, except with the consent of the President of the Senate and the general assent of the senators present. Mr. President, I crave your indulgence that this matter yesterday was raised by me to say that this request that was sought by Mr. President from the Senate is procedurally wrong. And of course, what has been read by the leader of the state this morning is that this matter is to be referred to the appropriate committee for the inclusion of this amount of money that has already been spent. This ought to have been the first request to this Senate by Mr. President before the money was spent. And we must put it on record very clearly. There is a violation of our process and it's a violation of the procedure as, of course, enunciated in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of 1999 as amended. So, Mr. President, this is the point I want to make.
Mr. Distinguished colleagues, he has come under for which I take the leave of the Senate for us to take his motion. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Carry on, Senator.
Mr. President, thank you very much for the consent that has been given, and I thank my colleagues for it. Mr. President, it is obvious that this Senate, or by extension the National Assembly, is charged with the responsibility of appropriation. And that is the very cardinal function of the National Assembly. Appropriation is the exclusive preserve of the National Assembly. The two houses or the two chambers, the Senate and the House of Representatives, are charged with the responsibility of appropriating funds from the Consolidated Revenue Fund. Mr. President, I now move this motion that what the president has done is a violation of Section 80, with all the subsections in Section 80, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if I crave your indulgence, my motion has it to that these sections, subsections 1, 2, 3, 4 of Section 80 clearly defines what has to be done when it comes to public spending. And what it has to say is that the president must seek, or any amount of money that has to be spent in the federation must be appropriated by the National Assembly. This expenditure has not been appropriated by the National Assembly, and therefore it breaches the provision of our Constitution. Mr. President, my motion goes further to explain a very naughty supposition that has been made, or that has been bandied around this expenditure. The Senate is not unmindful of the fact that the objective of this expenditure is very well established, but the procedure for this expenditure is wrong. There ought to have been appropriation before this money was spent. And of course, Mr. President, whereas the Committee on Appropriation 2, of which I'm a member, was mandated to call the Minister of Defense to explain what happened about this expenditure, he agreed to, before the committee, that this is procedurally wrong, that they had to pay for this money, even though they had ample time to submit a supplementary budget to the Senate for approval. They refused to do so. So, Mr. President, the Senate hereby further notes that there are serious consequences for violation of our Constitution. Now, we are between agreeing to performing a function that the president has done on behalf of this country, which is quite objective, but at the same time a violation which of course is our Constitution that we have all sworn to uphold. So, Mr. President, as a consequence, the only thing that we can draw from on this is that we call on you, Mr. President, to invoke Section 143 of this, because what it means is that this matter, of course, the consequences that are contained in the provisions of Section 143 of our Constitution should be invoked. I so move, Mr. President.
Senator Tazi.
President, I am Senator Chukwuka Otaze. I represent the good people of Enugu North Central District of Enugu State. We don't have bad ones in Enugu State. We have good people only. Mr. President, I rise to second this motion as moved by the chairman of the Senate Committee on Public Accounts, most distinguished Senator Matthew Rogide. Mr. President, Section 80 of 1999 Constitution as amended has established, especially in subsection 2, that one, I read, no money shall be withdrawn from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation except to meet the expenditure that is charged upon the fund by this Constitution, or where such issue, or where the issue of those money has been authorized by an Appropriation Act, Supplementary Appropriation Act, or an act passed in pursuance of Section 81 of this section. And he said, 3, no money shall be withdrawn from the public fund of the Federation other than the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation, unless the issue of those monies has been authorized by an act of the National Assembly. What has been read has not been authorized by the National Assembly and is a completed act. Subsection 4, no money shall be withdrawn from the Consolidated Revenue Fund or any other public fund of the Federation, except in the manner prescribed by the National Assembly. We have not prescribed anything, and this thing is done extra budgetary. So we are not prescribed. And you go to, I'll take the privilege to go to Section 81, and I read subsection 81.2. The heads of expenditure contained in the estimate, other the expenditure charged upon the Consolidated Fund of the Revenue of the Federation by this Constitution, shall be included in a bill to be known as an appropriation bill, providing for the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the sums necessary to meet the expenditure and appropriation of those sums for the expenditure for the purposes specified therein. It goes also to say, in 4, it's 1.4, if in respect of any financial year, it is found that A, the amount appropriated by the Appropriations Act for any purpose is insufficient, or B, a need has arisen for the expenditure for a purpose for which no amount has been appropriated by the Act, a supplementary estimate showing the sums required shall be laid before each house of the National Assembly, and heirs of such expenditure shall be included in a supplementary appropriation bill. Mr. President, I take time to read all this for everybody because my colleague that just moved the motion didn't read this in, and I have to read it for people to feel and understand what we are saying here. You see, we are still doing an appropriation bill. We are not finished with the appropriation bill. And I don't call this, I don't know whether, looking at the Constitution, whether this one falls under Section 81.4, where you are bringing supplementary. There is no supplementary, and somebody, the chief executive of this country, has decided to act outside the Constitution. This is not the first time this thing has happened, Mr. President. This thing has started a long time ago. When the service chiefs were brought here, they were appointed and given offices, and they will assume their offices. When the FIRS chairman was appointed, he was appointed and assumed office without record to this National Assembly. And several other such constitutional breaches that are here before, that are flying in the face of this National Assembly. And this one again, our president, and even the funny aspect of this thing is that it's going to be this Tucano that is going to be supply helicopter. It's in 2020. It is not just this year, not 2018, not 2019, 2020. And this is what we are doing here. And we are talking about that. 1 billion was appropriated for Northeast without anybody discussing anything about it here. Mr. President, a time has arisen when these Senate have to rise up and do the job which the Constitution stipulated that we have to do. If we have a chief executive who doesn't want to behave according to the Constitution, we follow the Constitution also to handle such a chief executive. And there's no way to, there's no other name to call this except that this is an impeachable offense. It's an impeachable offense, and we cannot allow that. We cannot stay here and Nigerians will be, the assembly will be taken for granted. Nigerians will be taken for granted. It should not be so, Mr. President. If you say that you are a man here, you can stand up to be counted. If you say that you are here on behalf of your people, this is time to stand up and get counted. This is, we're talking about Nigeria. We're not talking about anybody. We're discussing about our country. This is our country. And things should be done the way it should be done. Not the way things are done. So I rise and support this motion, second this motion, as moved by the chairman of the appropriation, the Senate Committee on Public Accounts Committee. Thank you so much.
Senator Shivusani.
Mr. President, I stand as Comrade Senator Shivusani to add my voice to this very testy and sensitive issue. Like I've always said, there are two sides to issues of this kind. But first and foremost, as a Nigerian, a very conscious and awakened one, we are not ignorant of the security reality of Nigeria today. People are killed in hundreds every day, from Benue to Taraba, Zamfara, Nasarawa, Kaduna, and most parts of the north-central states and the south. We're concerned that this violence and mindless bloodletting and massacre is threatening the peace, the unity, the stability, and the future of our country. We are also not mindful of the fact that as leaders elected into office, we have both a moral and constitutional duty to restore order and peace, and to end this mindless bloodletting that is testing the efficacy, the viability, and the value and the essence of our being in office. I'm very much concerned with the very fact that our country is becoming a fallen state. I also appreciate, recognize the effort of the President and the federal government in general in trying to bring order and security and peace to these areas that have seen much bloodshed, much massacre. Funeral services, burial and mourning is becoming the order of the day in the country today. But that is not an excuse to violate the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Like I've always said, this is a difficult moment for people to speak. Many times we prefer to bury our heads in shame. We find it much easier to speak on issues that are not controversial, one that will not test our loyalty, one that will not test our commitment to our country, and one that will not test our principle as a people. But I think we should understand that when you are elected to office, and especially as a distinguished senator, you should have nothing to fear other than your God. You should speak the truth and stand by it. We may have a president that is man of integrity today, that Nigerians so much love. And if we allow these things to happen today, we have no reason to challenge it in the future when you have a president that is not President Muhammadu Buhari. When you set a dangerous precedent, you are simply laying a foundation for desecration of the institution of democracy. You cannot appropriate what has been spent. You cannot deposit the money that you spend in a bank. What has happened today is a gross violation of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But we must understand that inasmuch as we are very sensitive and the credibility and the usefulness of the president and his government is being constantly tested. When will peace return to Benue? When will our security forces be able to end the insurgency in the northeast? When will the killing stop in Zamfara? When will the kidnappings and the killing stop in Kaduna and Nasarawa State? When will the violence in all parts of the country come to an end? It has always been said, the primary function of a government is the peace, order, and security of the citizens. But it's very clear to us that we are failing as a government and we are also failing as a nation. But like I've said, we take the risks of endorsing and embracing what has happened today. It will be gazetted and it will be part of the history of Nigerian Senate, Nigerian democracy, for which we cannot challenge it in the future. I will say that what was done was wrong. And I would like my children and grandchildren to read my statement on this, despite the inconvenience of it. But we should know that Nigerian democracy is set to last for generations upon generations, but will be tested. So in my own way, I believe that the monies that are spent for security is worth it. But we should be calling for the refund of that money and due process to be followed for us to be able to achieve what we want to achieve. We have seen so much bloodshed, and there's a need for us not to circumvent the Constitution, not to circumvent the laws of the land, in an attempt to achieve some certain ends. So in my own way, I do not think we should impeach the president, but we should demand that the money be returned to follow due process to the end. Thank you very much.
Senator Abu Ibrahim.
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Abu Ibrahim. I represent Kasna South.
And also,
Sorry, sir. Sir, I partially stand on what Senator Shehu Sani mentioned or said. The letter of Mr. President is quite clear. He took action based on national interest, national security. That's why he authorized this payment. That's why he authorized this payment. The players that were looking for the fighters were being negotiated for years, and the American government refused to sell it. Now they gave the approval, they gave time frame for which the president has to act, and he acted. Now, if you look at the whole issue that is going on now, I believe the president has done something which is very, very fundamental. As far as I'm concerned, this is the first time that expenditure of this kind, money that was withdrawn from excess crude account, is being discussed in this National Assembly. I have been here for how many years? Since the beginning of this account, I have never seen any expenditure that was brought here for approval. I will give you an example. 17.71 billion was drawn by Obasanjo from the excess crude account to pay the Paris Club fund on 2 projects without National Assembly approval. Obasanjo left 9.3 billion in excess crude account, but former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan frittered away the money with no recourse to National Assembly. Now I'm just giving you an example. Listen to me now. The account again was increased to 5.16 billion in 2005 to over 20 billion in 2008 and decreased to less than 4 billion by Jonathan in 2010. It never came to National Assembly for approval. 2 billion was used by the previous PDP administration to fight Boko Haram in 2014. Governor Goodwill Akpabio was the one who moved the motion to the National Economic Council to get the money released. And it was done. Wait, I'm coming. You can reject it. 5 billion was taken for power generation. When they were sourcing funds for Niger Delta Power Holdings, the same process was not being taken by Adwa. It was later taken to the National Assembly, and National Assembly approved it. Now, Mr. President, I think this is a PDP. Let me finish, sir. This is a PDP conspiracy, Mr. President. And I would like PDP to come out today to tell us which of their governors have taken the money released on excess crude account to the states who are taken to state assembly for approval. Now, again, it's a big challenge. Bring it now. You are telling us you are trying to bring accountability in this country, but you are not doing it. You have never done it. You are not even asking your governors to do it. Now you are bringing it up because you've got a president who believes accountability, who brought for the first time bringing this money to be approved here. It has never done. The president has created a precedent for us. Next time, nobody will do it again. But, Mr. President, sir, the president talked on national security, for which we be concerned. Shehu Sani mentioned people are killed every day, and it's our responsibility to find money anywhere, and do it. But most importantly, this money was approved by a National Economic Council meeting. It was approved by the same governors, Council of State. So what do you want the president to do? To wait until we approve it? Secondly, the president paid directly to the American government, so there are no pecuniary interest on this payment. Therefore, please, let's use our senses. Let's work for the interests of Nigeria. Finally, this expenditure was part of the MTF, which we approved. Under the MTF, provision has been made for excess crude account. Federal government share is shown, state government shares have been shown. Lastly, or additionally, this 1 billion is not fully our responsibility. Part of it belongs to the state, which are approved by the state governors. So the president shouldn't even bring this to us. Especially, he could only bring 53% of the amount for our approval. The rest belongs to the state. Mr. President, I think, as a responsible Senate, as a responsible Nigerians, we should look at this critically without politics. We should. I agree, a small infraction has been made, but the president has accepted, brought it to us for approval, and as there is no pecuniary interest, it was not a business as usual, it was an agreement between Nigeria and the American government, it was paid in federal government, federal American treasury account. So what is the problem?
No intermediary.
No intermediary, nothing. Please, I appeal to my colleagues to look at this critically, to take politics out of it. But let me tell you, if it is a PDP conspiracy to tarnish the image of Muhammadu Buhari, they will not be able to do it. Because we are coming out with figures. We are coming out with figures on all the expenditure by the previous.
Point of order, leader.
Mr. President, no, you start. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I don't know. I'm coming under Order 43. By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, the Senator may make a personal explanation. I don't want to go too far. Mr. President, if you are...
No, he has said something particularly that I'm listening to.
First is that in his argument, he brought in a controversial issue of mentioning the former governor of Akwa Ibom said, Godswill Akpabio, as the person who moved a motion in National Economic Council in 2011 or 12, I don't know what year. And I happen to be the person he referred to. And I'm a senator, and I don't remember moving any such motion. And I don't think I saw him there in the National Economic Council. That's number one. So no, I have to explain. He wasn't there, and then I did not move such motion. The second aspect of it is that he kept referring to PDP. This is the Nigerian Senate. This is a Nigerian Senate. I think the way we have worked here, we have done a lot of things in a bipartisan manner. And so the issue of coming to say, if the PDP wants to tarnish the image of the president is the president of PDP. The president is the president of ABGA. Once you become a president of a nation, you are the president of all political parties.
Okay. All right. Your point of order is sustained. Senator Abubai, let's keep your discussion in the spirit that we've always talked here in the bipartisan manner. Carry on.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Noted. Now, as Senator Fabio said, we should look at this as a bipartisan issue, as a security issue, which I appeal to my colleagues to look at it that way, not PDP-APC affair. Because this is a PDP conspiracy. I mentioned it again, because I heard what was going on, the discussions that were going by PDP senators and their leadership, some of them. This is a time to tarnish Muhammadu Buhari's image. We cannot get him on anything. But this simple thing which the president has taken in the interest of Nigeria, coming now. So my appeal is, please, let's look at this expenditure rationally. Let's look at it as Nigerian leaders. Look at it as senators who are ready to do anything possible to improve the security of Nigeria. People are being killed everywhere. Yesterday it was Benue. 2 days ago it was Zamfara. Every day. There is no way a responsible president will just sit down and be bogged down by some procedures which are, I think, they are important. But at the same time, we should give them the leverage to take action, urgent action, when the need arises. My concerns are that Mr. President mentioned that he will bring the remaining balance. Here, I would urge that the remaining balance should be used for real internal security apparatus. The police, the SSS, And we should bring as quickly as possible our committee report on security infrastructure so that it can be taken to cover the remaining balance. Mr. President, I oppose this motion because it's politically motivated. We should look at this as a single, responsible Senate belonging to Nigeria, working for Nigeria. We are not working for PDP or APC or any party, as this Senate should stand. Thank you very much.
Yes, Senator Samayon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. My name is Senator Sam Anyanwu. I represent Imo East in Imo State. Actually, Mr. President, I wanted to invoke Order 53.6 of our standing rule, which says that no senator shall impute improper motives to any other senator. What Senator Abu Ibrahim was saying, out of context, issue of mentioning of PDP is wrong, and I think Mr. President, you should withdraw that, because this is a motion that was brought to this Senate by a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as regards to infractions by the executive. Mr. President, when I was born by my mother, we are twins. I was born a twin. Myself, Senator Sam Anyanwu, and my other brother, Fia. And I don't know how I can be afraid of my brother, Fia. Why I'm saying this, Mr. President, is that this is an institution. We should keep every friendship and look at the Constitution, which we have all sworn to protect, no matter whose God is God. Mr. President, you talked about a PDP. I remember the late Okadibo was removed from office based on anticipatory budgetary. Mr. President, what has been done today is a pure breach of the Constitution. It was a pure breach of the Constitution, and we must realize that. And I believe that as a very responsible and responsive institution, we must put things straight. Somebody has brought a motion, and we are debating the motion. We have condemned it. It's beyond party affiliation. It's beyond party affiliation. But we have agreed here. So many things have done to this Constitution. All the provisions of this Constitution, everything we will do here in the Senate is based on the Constitution, of course, our standing rule. So I think that this is a very serious issue. The matter has been canvassed, and I think that we should all contribute, and without fear of favor or fear of contradiction for whatever reasons. Yes, when you say the truth, you become a target. But we don't fear to become a target by saying the truth. We must continue to say the truth. The issue is that an infraction that has been done, and has called for us to see what do we do in the face of this issue of contravention of the Constitution. Contravention of the Constitution. I think it's important that we look at the issue, the substance, and not where the division is coming from. Our colleagues, I raised this motion, Mr. President. I raised this motion, and it was this motion, the prayer of that motion, or the resolution of that motion, was asked the appropriation committee to look into the matter. But of course, Mr. President have come up to own up it that this matter is actually, the money has actually been spent. So of course, what it means is that my motion was proper. At least I've been vindicated. So now that there's an infraction, what do we do next? We have no other reason, we have no other thing to do than to follow the Constitution, which my colleague has quoted, section 143 of the Constitution. That's what we should look at, and then be able to know what next to do. Mr. President, that's my own submission. Thank you.
Leader of the Senate.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues. I am in a bit of difficulty to really understand the purport of this motion, in view of the fact that while the Constitution vests certain responsibilities to Mr. President, it equally vests the National Assembly with certain responsibilities. And if you have my permission, if I have your permission, Mr. President, I would like to read section 83, subsection 1 and 2 of the Constitution. 83 says, the National Assembly may by law make provision for the establishment of a contingency fund for the Federation and for authorizing the President, if satisfied that there has arisen an urgent and unforeseen need to expenditure for which no other provision exists, to make advances from the fund to meet the need. 2 says, where any such advance is made in accordance with the provision of this section, a supplementary estimate shall be presented. A supplementary appropriation bill shall be introduced as soon as possible for the purpose of replacing the amount so advanced. I am aware that in the last budget, I'm sure there has been some supplementary provisions. But in view of the controversy that this has generated, my advice is that we have a committee on judiciary, legal matters. Issues of this nature can be referred to that committee. Let them look at it properly and advise the Senate on way forward on this matter. Let us not try to put this as if it is a partisan issue. The people who raise the matter, yes, politically they have right to raise the matter before the National Assembly. They are matters of concern. But we equally believe that a proper legal advice from the Committee on Judiciary and Legal Matters can suffice so that the Senate can be properly guided on this matter. That is my submission, sir.
Distinguished colleagues, I think we've taken contributions from our colleagues, and I think the contribution of the leader addresses 2 issues, and I think we must take note of that. The concerns we have, one is, as Jose Wishani said, and all of us agree that there are security concerns in our country. And I think also we all agree at the same time that from what has been presented to us, definitely there is a breach of Constitution. The question is, what are the circumstances surrounding the breach of Constitution, and whether those circumstances justify the breach of Constitution. And I believe, because this issue, as some of you realize, I'm sure you all remember that it was September last year, September 2017, I think it was even August 2017, we're on recess, when I got the message from the US ambassador that the Senate committee at the Congress of the United States wanted to visit us because they had got a request from President Trump to approve for payment to Tucanos, but they needed Congress approval. And Congress wanted to come to Nigeria to speak with their counterparts and we all had to come back from our vacation. And I led the team with the House of Rep members and members here. And we met the members of Congress on this issue. This was in August, September. So to give them assurance, so definitely we were aware at that time of the issues. Between September and February, with all due respect, there were ample time for the executive to have carried us along on this issue. So there are arguments for and against, and I think that these arguments are valid. I don't want us to break it down to partisan issues or partisan issues. These are not partisan issues. The suggestion of the leader that let us send it to judiciary to advise, one, whether truly, from those who are not laymen, whether the Constitution has been breached. 2, the circumstances surrounding that, whether it does in any way justify that. They will advise us, and then they will come before us. And as you say, an action, then what do we do going forward in trying to even appropriate? Because the funds have already been spent. Do we go under what leaders come under, that though the fund has been spent, you come under for, or we start the whole process of appropriating? Because I don't think the exercise itself is what the Senate, because we endorsed it to the US Congress. It was after we agreed in September that the US Congress now went back to give approval to the executive to pay. So to their own government that they can go ahead and sell this equipment to Nigeria. So I think that what if you all agree, I'll put it that we refer the matter to the judiciary and give them a short period of time by Tuesday, by Wednesday next week. They submitted Tuesday next week. I beg your pardon? No, there's this. I think it's just judiciary to advise. Yes. Yeah.
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
thank you very much. Mr. President, once again, I'm Senator Matthew Rogide. Mr. President, in as much as we don't want to make this issue very contentious, I want to submit, Mr. President, that what the leader of the Senate advised, based on his argument, Mr. President, what the section he read, Section 83 of this Constitution, really does not apply.
Senator Matthew, wait. Senator Matthew Rogide, I'm not referring it because of Section 83. He came up. He has come up with his own interpretation of the legal action taken. I'm saying that the only best committee here that can advise us on whether an infraction has taken place, no infraction has taken place. If an infraction has taken place, is it justified for infraction have taken place? And then how do we move forward to address this anomaly? Is judiciary. And let them look at it. Tuesday is a public holiday, I'm told. So by Wednesday, they can bring the report back to us. So those in favor of this say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator David, tomorrow you have by Wednesday, you lay the report in along to what we've told you. All right, thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, the second order of the day is a motion standing in the name. Order, please. Senator Obina, sit down. Order. Senator Obina, sit down. Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, the second order of the day is a motion standing in the name of former Governor of Benue State, distinguished Senator George Akume, on the continued killings in Benue. Mr. President, you may wish to invite former Governor, distinguished Senator George Akume, to move the motion.
Senator George Akume.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Senator George Akume, Senator George Akume, Benue Northwest. Mr. President, my colleagues, I want to thank you for the opportunity of moving this motion. The title of the motion is very clear: Continued Killings in Benue State. The Senate, not with dismay, those who are making noise, it means you support the killings in Benue. Well, Mr. President, the Senate, note with dismay the continued killings, maiming and wanton destruction of lives and property in Benue State, particularly Benue Northwest Senatorial District, which is my own district, comprising of 7 local governments: Makodi, Guman, Gwe West, Taka, Boko, and Buruku. Logo and Kwaneko governments in Benue Northeast Senatorial District, and that is Senator Gumade's district, and of course Agatu and Okpaku. This man, go and sit down now. Agatu and Okpoku local governments in Benue South Senatorial District, which Senator David Mark represents. The Senate notes that these killings have continued unabated since January 2018. Aware that as a consequence, the federal government, through the Nigerian Army, embarked on a military exercise codenamed Ayema Fatima, or Cat Race. The Senate notes that this exercise was intended to curb and curtail these killings and destruction in Benue, Nasarawa, Taraba, and Kogi states. Dismayed that, despite the military presence, there is no end to the wanton killings. Acknowledges the role of the Senate in containing this crisis by sending an ad hoc intelligence committee to Benue State to ascertain the true situation on the ground. Notes that just recently in Abian headquarters of Sengeb Council Ward in Gwe West local government, there was an invasion by well-armed gunmen where 18 people were killed in addition to burning of houses, destruction of foodstuff, and other properties, estimated at hundreds of millions of naira. Also in Bawa, in Guma local government, and Saab also in Guma local government. This happened about 3 days ago, where scores of people have been killed. Further notes that on the morning of Tuesday, 24th April 2018, while some Christian faithfuls were gathered at St. Ignatius Catholic Church in Ayad town in Gwe East local government for their routine morning mass and burial ceremony, they were ambushed by armed gunmen who opened fire indiscriminately on the worshippers, resulting in the deaths of two Reverend Fathers, namely Reverend Father Joseph Gore, Reverend Father Felix Cholaha, and the catechist John Ibor, and 17 others. And let us listen. Worried that this latest attack on a worship center, which is most unprecedented in Benue, has very grave implications for the security and unity of our dear nation. Also notes the monumental refugee situation now in Benue, estimated at over 200,000, which is being faced by the entire state, particularly Benue Northwest Senatorial District, where all the 7 local governments of the district are affected by these invasions and killings. Accordingly, Senate resolves as follows: to observe a minute silence in honor of the dead, condemn in the strongest possible terms these wanton killings and destruction confronting the state, urge the federal government to adopt special and proactive measures to bring an end to this carnage, urge security agencies to identify, apprehend, and prosecute the perpetrators of this heinous act, urge the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, to urgently provide more relief materials to the growing number of IDPs displaced by this invasion, urge the federal government to holistically evaluate the entire security architecture of the country, and finally urge the federal government to ensure the immediate and early return of these IDPs to their ancestral homes to prepare for the planting season, and to establish a relief and resettlement fund for them. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, thank you for your attention.
Senator Yusuf.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Yusuf Abubakar Yusuf, representing Taraba Central. This issue of wanton killings has been going on for some time now. The crisis has become impossible to contain. And unless if this hallowed chamber and the National Assembly has taken these things very, very seriously, they will continue. It is my belief that if you have weak laws, you will have weak applications. I come by Section 11 of this Constitution, and by the permission, I may read part of it. The National Assembly may make laws for the Federation or any part thereof with respect to the maintenance and securing of public safety and public order, and providing, maintaining, and securing of such supplies and services as may be designated by the National Assembly as essential supplies and services. Mr. President, sir, distinguished colleagues, I think the law governing, the security architecture of this country need to be overhauled and look at it in total entirety. The other day, my colleague, Senator Marafa, alleged about the lack of seriousness by his governor in terms of containing the security in that local government. Many areas, they are accusing the governors, as part and parcel of these insecurity situations in the country. We accuse the police as not doing, the other day, the military the other day was my colleague of colluding with chairman, Senator. So, Your Excellency, Sir Marafa, and distinguished colleagues, it is my own opinion, the lack of. We should also look at Section 305 of the Constitution and subsection D. I read again, Your Excellency. If there is a clear and present danger of an actual breakdown of public order and public safety in the Federation or any part thereof, requiring the extraordinary measures to avert such danger. So I think we should, as National Assembly, invoke this section, use Section 11 of the Constitution and invoke Section 305, subsection D, to arrest the situation in this country. In that way, I think we will be able to have a good tap on the security. And what this section is simply saying, we should assist the federal government to declare state of emergency in all these flashes where we have this insecurity. Probably, by the grace of God, we should be able to contain the situation. This is my contribution, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues. I thank you very much.
Senator Belandada.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Bola Ndada, representing Ogun West. Today, I have pain in my heart. The nation is now at war. If you see the killings in this nation for the past 6 months, over 2,000 people have been killed senselessly across this land. The entire Iraqi war by American force, 4,000 people died, and that was a serious war. Every day we all listen to pain and agony cry of these people across the land. We don't take enough effort to look at it, to address it. The time has come. This is a desperate hour for the nation. For the final hour for this Senate to stand up and be counted, to defend what is right and decent in our society. The executive and the Senate has a responsibility to protect life and properties of these people. These helpless people, dog being killed every day. Who are these people responsible for this? We need to look at who are responsible for this killing. Are they Nigerians? Are they foreigners? Because information that reached me was this Tuareg group that was displayed by Gaddafi in southern Sudan and in Libya are the one coming down south, perpetuating this hatred and killings. And when you even go further, they're trying to create a religion conflict in this land. When you go to a holy place and keep people who are worshiping early in the morning, that is unacceptable to us. I feel very concerned, Mr. President, sir, and colleagues, that let us look at our constitutions. It's written by us, not for us. Let's look at what appropriate area the authority can do to curb the senseless killing in our land. This Senate should also rise to go and pay a visit to these states, especially Taraba State, Benue State, Southern Kaduna, and the rest. It's not new for us to go gregariously to visit colleagues. We should all isolate those issues and go straight to Benue now and support the people of this place. We are creating a starvation coming up. This region is a belt for our food. If they destroy the flow of food in the next 6 months, they're going to have problems across this land. Mr. President, sir, colleagues, I think it is about time for us to pay a visit to this state and support these people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Barrow Jibrin. I represent Kano North. Mr. President, some years back, when there was the plan to attack Libya, a lot of people came out with the suggestion that should not happen because the effect of that attack will create instability within the region. And this is what we are experiencing now. Because I have been disturbed personally on the reason why these killings are being carried out endlessly. And I was wondering what was the cause. Because I know that herdsmen and the locals in Benue, Nasarawa, and all that say that, we have problems, of killings now. They have been cohabiting without problem for centuries, for centuries. Then why should there be problem now? Then not until when the president clearly told the nation, told the world, that arms that those who were involved in the Libyan crisis and those people, the mercenaries that were involved in that crisis, are the ones that have come into our country to create instability in our country. Mr. President, my pain is that our security agencies should have seen this, so that we could nip that in the bud. But they didn't do that. I remember, sir, in about 2000 and 2001, in Kano, there used to be this we call Taliban. That is the Boko Haram we are talking about now. Used to come to Panshekara, attack people, and then disappear into the area. And you could not, there was no way you could know who did that attack. And so people were saying that were people that were unseen people, they were people that you could not see them. Not knowing it was the Boko Haram that was doing that. And it's a kind of indictment on our security agency still, because they will have known that these people were preparing to attack the nation as a whole. So what I want to say is this, sir. The security agencies, our security agencies must really begin to get their act together. Make sure they find out these people. Because killing priests is a kind of incitement. They want to incite people along religious line so that we should begin to fight ourselves. They have tried several ways and they could not succeed because these killings are taking place in the far north, they are taking in north central, taking place everywhere. So we have come to Nigerians have come to know that this thing was not tribal, that these killings were done by people who want to destabilize this country. Now they are now coming to create, try to bring about a religious crisis. So, Mr. President, I want to say that the onus now falls on the shoulders of our security agencies. Let them find out these people and deal with them. Any delay in getting these people will not be good for us. And I think we should send that warning. We should let them be on their toes to make sure that without delay, they discover these people. They are not, you can see them. They should use all apparatus necessary, all equipment necessary, high-tech equipment to know where these people are and how they are able to carry out this heinous crime. Mr. President, I so submit.
Senator Adoke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, last week I brought a motion here to draw attention to what was going on in Nasarawa State. And of course, the part of Nasarawa State that we have this running battle is contiguous to Benue State. I believe that by now, everybody should be seized of the fact that the axis of Taraba, Benue, and Nasarawa State is under terrorist attack, and this has been going on for over 5 months. It is about time that the Nigerian government, which includes all of us, come out with a clear-cut strategy to deal with what is going on there. Just as the mover of this motion said, the army was sent there specifically to deal with the crisis at that axis of Benue, Taraba, Nasarawa, and even Kogi. But to the ultimate dismay of everybody, the army is there, and these things are going on. Nobody can arrest the situation. As I said in my last motion, some of these killings are taking place within a distance of 20-30 minutes drive from army bases, and nothing is happening. And it will surprise you, Mr. President, that after I raised the motion here, some of the authorities tried to go around to see what was happening, and they were booed by IDP persons in the camps. And you would not believe it, that an army detachment of about 3 vehicles and 3 vehicles of SAS went around to arrest the people who booed somebody, when the real criminals are there in the bush and nobody is doing anything about it. The speed with which the authorities responded to the booing of an authority, if they had applied 1/10 of that, by now they would have dealt with the situation. And like the last speaker said, this thing is not even about the Fulani that we live with every day. Even the Fulani that live with the farmers on a daily basis are scared of these people that are terrorizing everybody. And they themselves want these things ended. As I speak to you, 3 days ago, some of the terrorists went away and hustled the cattle of the Fulanis. So they themselves are as harassed as the farmers. It means that, just like it was recently admitted, that we are having foreign influx of terrorists. It means that the state has to rise and deal with it. It means this country is faced with external aggression. And if you cannot deal with it, it speaks very little about the capacity of our government. Mr. President, if, like one speaker said, it is almost getting to a point that we must declare a state of emergency in these 3 contiguous states of Taraba, Nasarawa, and Benue, because all the attacks are coordinated within these 3 states. While the attack goes on in Benue, while you are about to deal with that, they move to Nasarawa. While you are about to deal with that, they move to Taraba. They are so nimble. It means that if you are going to deal with this situation, you have to attack all the 3 states simultaneously. The military has to come out with a clear plan of arresting this. I want to quote the words of late Abacha: any insurgency that lasts more than 24 hours has the knowledge of government. And if government cannot deal with any insurgency within 24 hours, and this one is raging to over 3 months, it clearly shows whether the government knows or not. It can be properly interpreted to say that they know about it. If you don't know about it, you deal with it. And while we are the subject of dealing with crisis, the American Congress is very reluctant to even give us arms, because they came up with a list of our failures in terms of corruption is still going on. A lot of human rights abuses are going on. And so they may not even approve some of the arms we are asking for. They will not approve arms to any government that will use those arms not to deal with the crisis, but to even perpetrate more human rights abuses. These are the situations we are dealing with. And the sooner the government comes to realize that they are going to be isolated very soon in the international community, the better for all of us. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Rabi Kwankwaso.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My name is Rabi Musa Kwankwaso, representing Kano Central. Mr. President, this is the time once again to condemn the killings that are happening in so many states, especially in this part of Nigeria. Mr. President, I believe that we have well-trained and very competent military in this country. However, we need to give them the maximum support we can in terms of equipments, in terms of welfare, and of course, in terms of kitting. The other area that is very important is the area of intelligence. Mr. President, over the years, we had all these experiences across the country. In fact, in the heydays of the Boko Haram, we suffered a lot in Kano. But our strategy was mainly to involve all the communities, all the sectors, all people involved in this country by way of training and retraining, of course, of so many special services staff in the country, and involving the local community who were cooperating with the state government and, of course, the security agencies in the state. And also the issue of synergy. There has always been competition between the security agencies, the military on one hand, the police, the SSS, and so on and so forth. And I think the synergy is very critical for the success of fight against these killings. So, Mr. President, I believe that our military are competent enough to deal with the situation as it is. But all these requirements must be in place for them to have a success, and success that can come as soon as possible. So I join my friends, my colleagues in condemning the killings in all these areas that were being mentioned, and of course, even other places across the country that these killings are happening. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Mao Wabon.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, my name is Senator Mao Wabon from Abia North. Mr. President, this is one killing too many, one crisis too many, one disaster too many. Mr. President, if you look at the prayers here, if you go through our votes and proceedings or our archives, you will see that we would have had these same prayers more than 100 times, more than that. So there is nothing new here. The other day I was joking with somebody, I said maybe we will increase this 1 minute silence to 5 minutes silence. Maybe that will make a difference. Because the 1 minute silence, which is the normal thing, is not making any difference. We call the military, nothing is happening. Call the police, nothing is happening. But Mr. President, one question I want to ask is that we have directorates of security services. We have National Intelligence Agency. We have Military Intelligence Agency. What role are they playing in this issue? What are they doing? Because some of these things should be nipped right in the bud. These guys have a place of meeting. They move from one spot to the other. And they move undetected. I mean, it's quite worrisome. And we must stand up at this time to defend our people. Because people are being killed. Even animals are not are regularly killed as human beings are being killed now. No more premium on human life. No value. We kill people anyhow. Mr. President, for me, I'm rising straight to support what Senator Adokwe had just said. We just have to declare state of emergency because there's nothing more to do. And the president himself has gone out of this country to say that this is an invasion from outside the country. So what else are we waiting for? He's the chief executive of this country, and he has said it, which means we're in war. It's a war situation. Every day you kill. Now they go to church, slaughter priests, slaughter malams. I mean, it's not acceptable. So I'm saying, I'm standing here to say, look, these states that are involved, and it's been consistent. Let's just declare state of emergency. Let the military go in and fight a normal war. It will no more be a guerrilla war. Let it be a normal war so that we can get these people out of the place. Otherwise, we are joking. And like you've always said, we are just few minutes to election. And you know what happens with the tendencies during the election. And if we don't get this off our way before we get into the election, God knows what will happen. So I'm standing here to say, look, these prayers are the normal prayers that we've had here, and still nothing has happened. So I don't support these prayers at all. Rather, I support Adokwe that these states, this contiguous state, there should be a declared state of emergency. Then let the military go in and deal with these people as those who have come to destabilize and fight Nigeria. Thank you.
Senator Issa Misau.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Issa Hama Misau, representing the good people of Bauchi Central. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, like 4 months ago when we were discussing some killings in Zamfara, I stood here and said these killings will not stop. And at that time, I was saying it because I have looked at the security architecture and I look at the way our security men respond to situations. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, this matter that we are discussing today, whatever we say here, whatever we do here, if we don't get the cooperation of the executive, especially the President and the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, these things will continue to happen. Mr. President, those advising the government about issues of loyalty, there are some people that are heading these security organizations are loyal, so they don't need to be changed. I think they are putting it wrong. Because if you look at what is happening in the country, our security men, they don't even have the idea on how to stop these killings. Let me give you 2 examples, Mr. President. Let me start with what happened in Ofa, a local government in Kwara State. Some young boys, they are not even hardened criminals. Some young boys organized themselves. They went to police station, killed about 9 policemen. Then thereafter, they went to fight banks and operated for 3 hours without a single shot from any security man fired within that within that 3 hours. So you can see if one of the biggest local governments in Kwara State will experience that kind of situation under 3 hours, not one single fire or bullet was fired, and these young boys, they went and operated successfully. It was after they operated, when they were enjoying the money they took, that the police were able to catch some of them. The second example, this is the heart of this country, especially this hollow chamber, where some people came here, took the mess and went out even on live television. On live television, the faces of those people that perpetrated that act was shown everywhere in the world. And till today, the police were not able to arrest these people. So if we look at it, if something like this happened in Abuja, in the National Assembly, and they are not able to get the people that came here and took it on live television, then what do you think they can do in Zamfara, Benue, Taraba, and other places? Let us be fair to ourselves. Let us engage the executive. It's no issue about loyalty. That person that is loyal to the president today was loyal to somebody yesterday. And if he has no idea on how to stop these security challenges, then I think we need to change. Anybody you put then he will be loyal to you as the commander-in-chief. There is nobody you will put there and he will not do this thing. Therefore, when you look at it, they are short of ideas. The idea to stop these killings, if we don't do anything, you have to engage the commander-in-chief. Those people that are advising him that he should not do anything about this security that is happening, I think they are advising the government in the wrong direction. From what we are seeing, look at now. You can see now it is no issue of manpower. It is no issue of resources. If you see the number of men they mobilize against to pick Senator Dino, you know that it's no matter of manpower or resources. Within some minutes, they were able to mobilize more than 100 mobile policemen to his house with new brand vehicles. So if we have that kind of thing, that within a minute we can mobilize such kind of manpower, that means we should mobilize those kind of manpower to all these places. I think, unless of course, maybe intentionally they don't want to stop this thing, maybe there is something that we don't know. If then we have to get to the root of this matter, like what Mao said, we cannot be here and be saying 1 minute prayer, 2 minutes prayer. It's more than that. It's more than that. Life, you cannot move freely in this country today. And we have some security agencies that always, we see them when it comes to political issues, before you know, within 5 seconds, you will see they will dominate everywhere. But when it comes to the real challenges, you can't see them. It is time for us to know what to do. It is time for the leadership to know what to do. If it means going to see the commander-in-chief to explain the situation, that there is nobody will be appointed by the president as maybe among the service chief or inspector general, they will not be loyal to him. But we are running short of ideas on how to solve this problem. So we need some fresh ideas. We need fresh people to come and see what they can do. If we don't do that, we will just continue to maybe we increase it to 5 minutes. Maybe it can stop. I don't know, but there is no idea if somebody will come here on live television and will go and still no arrest. I think something is fundamentally wrong, and we need to do something about this. Thank you.
Senator Ume.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Victor Ume. I represent Anambra Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise one more time to speak on these gory killings going on in Nigeria. Last week, I contributed here on the issue of Nasarawa State. But I rise this morning not to say a new thing, but to draw the attention of the Senate to the new dimension the killings in Benue 2 days ago added to the problems facing the country. The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, in his condolence message to the people of Benue State and in condemnation of the killings that took place in Benue State on Tuesday, added very importantly that these killings and the perpetrators are trying to stoke religious conflict in Nigeria. Mr. President, this is the new dimension, and this is the fact of the matter. Killings have been going on, we've been condemning them, but this killing of Tuesday inside a church where 2 reverend fathers were killed and 17 worshippers were also murdered had opened a new vista in the challenges. It is just like gunmen running into a mosque, killing the imam and the worshippers in the mosque. The country cannot see this type of thing and come up with condemnation. Religion is a very volatile issue in any nation. Myself and Senator Francis Ali McKenna, both of us are Papa Knights of the Catholic Church. So we feel very pained about this killing of Tuesday. We value priests we value God, we value our faith. And if people can be killed this way, without an immediate drastic action coming from government, this thing will continue. That was what I said last week. Since Tuesday, knowing that I am in this Senate, and I'm sure Senator Ali McKenna must have been getting calls from priests all over Nigeria, there is a bitter pain on the Catholic Church about this killing of Tuesday. And this is the way the country will continue to be divided and polarized. Because religion is an opium of the masses. And when people begin to see that their church, place of worship, can no longer be respected, where the priests people look up to for religious guide are murdered, just like that, and nobody has been arrested, it goes to divide us further. So, Mr. President, I think this killing of Tuesday calls for more drastic action so that people will have faith in Nigeria. Senator Misao has said it. The way Dino was hunted down by so many policemen just on short notice gives a mockery of what has happened on Tuesday in Gwe local government area, Gwe West local government area of Benue State. We're expecting that by now people would have been arrested, but we're not seeing any of these things. So, in support of those who have called for state of emergency on security in Benue State, because Benue State has been in the receiving end. January this year, January 2nd, 73 people were murdered. They were given mass burial, and many of them were these Catholics. We saw the funeral. And later on, more killings continued to take place. And just Tuesday, a church was attacked. I want us to take this matter very seriously, because if we don't do anything to show the people that our places of worship are safe, both the mosques and the churches, then there will be an impending implosion in this country. Nobody will accept it that way. So in calling for state of emergency on security in Benue State, I believe that the might of the Nigerian military is very enormous. Let nobody tell us that we don't have manpower or equipment to tackle this issue. What it requires is the will to direct action in the affected areas. We can move so many soldiers there, security people, and within days, this thing will change. People will be arrested. So let us take this thing with very amount of seriousness it deserves. Otherwise, I can tell you, those of us who are relating with the grassroots, there is a silence of the graveyard, and the signs are very ominous. Let the president go beyond condemnation of these killings and condolence messages. Let him direct the military to go to Benue State and fish out these killers. He has always promised we get to the root of it. Finally, we don't get to the root of it. Let him direct the army and other security agencies to go to Benue and apprehend these people. They are within a territory. They are within a territorial space. And if you choke that place with military personnel, these people will be apprehended. At least these arms they've been using to kill people will be gotten from them. But if you don't put people there, in the next 1 week, we will hear again of another attack. So the army must go there and get these people and bring them to book. That's the only way to assure Nigerians, particularly the wounded Christians, that this thing is not a sectional fight, a sectional battle. This is my submission, Mr. President, and I believe that the President declaring a state of emergency in Benue State, and our seeing the result of that action. That's the only way nerves that are frayed can be assuaged. Thank you, Mr. President.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, first let me thank very distinguished Senator Agume for this motion, and to say that I totally support it and identify with it. Mr. President, just like my colleagues have spoken, day in, day out, we come here, we observe a minute silence, thereafter we condemn the killings, and the very next day we come back, another set of people have been killed, we observe another minute silence, and all that. It's just like when we started losing our colleagues here, I made a joke to somebody, I said, this is getting frightening, that we are all next item. Because I actually watched, after the minute silence, there was next item. So even if 70-something people are killed, immediately we finish the 1 minute silence, you will say, leader, next item. That means Nigerians are now becoming next item. Because I used to think that one killing that occurs in Benue is as painful to somebody in Nasarawa as it will be painful to somebody if it occurred in a place. When we are discussing these issues, to some people who are not from those affected areas, whether you are talking about Zamfara, Taraba, Plateau, maybe Borno, anywhere, people will be thinking it's just like siren passing through the road and you are playing Scrabble. You will not even move because your child is not inside. But if it's your child that had maybe a heart attack, and they say it's inside that ambulance passing, there's no way you will sit down and continue to play. You will jump up and then you will start finding your way to the hospital. I think it's time that we woke up, the entire country, not just the security apparatus in the country. I believe strongly that we should also set up a very strong committee of the Senate to meet with the President privately to also profile solutions. And outside that, on the issue of Benue, there is no way we can have only police going to Benue. We know that the way the training of the police is different from the training of the military. Sometimes the police do not train for more than 1 year. I'm not saying they are not good, but I know that the military, they do go through much more rigorous training. And so sometimes in this kind of combat, they are much more professional. So if we leave it only to policemen, and then we draft police to Benue State, and then the area that there is no police, I was listening to the police commissioner this morning before I came to chambers, and he said that they seem to have information that whenever they are not in a particular area, they will strike 50 kilometers away. When they move to that area, they will go to the next area, 20 kilometers away. And then, of course, one of the senators described that started guerrilla tactics, where they now divide themselves. If they are 50, they go in groups of 5, 7, 10. They will just mix with the people. You will know that somewhere they have hidden their bikes. Then they will just run there when the crowd increases, pick up their guns, kill, jump on their bikes, and then they leave. So it's almost like trying to create a state of fear. And on a daily basis, people are agonizing. And for here, I would just want to say for me that my heart goes out to the families of those ones who have lost their dear ones. But we must do something to stop further agonies. We must do something to stop further killings. I get worried that even as we are talking now, they may be planning another one somewhere. And this time around, it's not a function of whether it's Benue or whether it is Taraba. We just look at it holistically. In a bipartisan way, we must know that this concerns Nigeria. It can happen anywhere. Look at what occurred here in the Senate. Nobody in this life would have believed that with over 250 security men, that maybe 5 or 6 young men can walk into the Senate. Even from their dressing, some people would have moved a point of order that they are not well dressed because nobody would have known that they were not senators. It has never happened anywhere in Africa. But they came in here and they carried their mace and they walked out there and then they left. And then when they got somewhere, they found that it wasn't useful, they dropped it. So it's becoming very laughable. In order for us to save Nigeria from being ridiculed within the international community, we must take these issues much more seriously than this. And in a way, I would suggest not just a state of emergency, but let us have a special military operation. And then with the deadline, Benue, 2018, give them 2 or 3 months to root out these people. And I can tell you, Mr. President, with this Hallowed Chamber taking such a position, within 2 months, I believe that sanity will be restored to that state. May the souls of those who have died rest in peace.
Francis Elmikina.
Thank you, Mr. President. The distinguished colleagues, I rise to support this motion ably moved by Senator Akume. Mr. President, we'll be hearing every day of killing, especially in Benue, Nasarawa, and Taraba. And like Senator Mao said, he said we are tired of 1 minute silence for these people. We continue to shout and nobody listens. And I believe that the Constitution guarantees freedom of worship in this country. If the freedom of worship is being threatened every now and then, that is a big red signal that these people are trying to put this country into. If a reverend father and some worshippers cannot even go to church early in the morning because of fear of herdsmen's attack, then where are we in this country? Mr. President, last time I remember when Benue citizen happened, the governor of Benue said Mitiala is the cause of the trouble in Benue. We've not been able to call Mitiala herdsmen, the leader of Mitiala, to book. Mr. President, if we want this matter to be solved, some people will say Mitiala is out of it. There are some people who will parade themselves to be honest at the outlook, but they are doing something heinous behind. Let us call the leadership of Mitiala to order and dialogue with them. Especially this is the area they operate, Benue, Taraba, and Yobe. They are more there. So if we want this matter to be solved, we must call the leadership of Mitiala to dialogue with them, to tell them what is their grievances. Because the way these people attack are they are doing it in a guerrilla warfare. One person organization can organize a guerrilla warfare and you will know. Because they can go in the night. It's not a question of calling the military. Call the military to when they are here, they say they are on that side. They must call those cultural organizations that are evil with this area and dialogue with them. It is then this matter will solve once and for all. So then if you don't say they have the leaders. And I even read in the paper the other day with this of recent that even the Sultan of Sokoto has even called the Mitiara that they should call them for dialogue. So it is better for this because if we don't do that, we will continue to be talking the way we are saying here and no solution, nothing. Now, Mr. President, last time Dino raised a point of order that the people who were saying they alleged him to have given arms to in Kogi, those one escape. Within 24 hours, they got these people. Why is it that these people killing these, the herdsmen killing these people cannot be seen and persecuted? If we have arrested few of them and they persecute them, the other people will take a cue. Tomorrow, these people will come, they say they kill, and the people don't see. I don't believe that people from Libya will know the nook and cranny of Benue or Taraba, and they will come there and operate and vanish to Libya, and come again and operate and vanish to Libya. The thing is within us. We can get this in, and maybe this is given credence to what General Dajuma said to say these people are now giving cover fire to do what they want to do and go back. And we believe that one that they are giving the cover fire. Why is it that they will not be arrested? For instance, this one of killing the 2 reverend fathers in the church, up to now, no arrest. Tomorrow they will kill 31, no arrest. And the police or the security agency to be up or doing in their responsibility. Why do we pay them? So, Mr. President, I believe they should call this cultural organization, especially Mitiara, Mr. President, Mitiara, they should call them and dialogue with the leadership of Mitiara. If we dialogue with them, you will see that within a short time, this killing will stop.
Senator Liu.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I rise, Mr. President, to give my support to this very important motion, heavily moved by my friend and brother, Senator George Akume. Mr. President, certainly what happened in Benue is condemnable. And as somebody said, we should not only condemn it, we should go beyond that and do whatever is humanly possible to fish out the culprits. Mr. President, we held Security Summit
as a result of incessant killings all over the country. And in that summit, Mr. President, we invited all the security chiefs, beginning from the Inspector General of Police, the DG SSS, DG NIA, National Security Advisor, and also we invited security experts to give us the way forward. Mr. President, the report is ready and is before the Senate. I don't know why we have not found time to deliberate on it. Virtually all the solutions we are looking for have been made in that report, because we heard from the horse's mouth the people that are involved with the provision of security in the whole federation. They made far-reaching recommendations, very, very useful one. And I believe if we can implement those resolutions or those recommendations, it will go a long way in providing security to this country. Mr. President, what happened in Benue, Nasarawa, Zamfara, and even Taraba, it can happen anywhere if action is not taken. And we should not just sit here and start passing motions, resolutions, without making sure that concrete actions are being taken to implement those resolutions. So, this dangerous dimension in Benue, Mr. President, of killing religious leaders, if care is not taken, it will bring us into very serious religious, crisis. So I want us to really look at it critically. The people that are perpetrating this violence are not even Muslims. They are not even Christians. I don't believe they have any religion. They live in the bush, from one place to another. They have no permanent place. Mr. President, let's just understand this. They can hit any target, whether the church or the mosque. So I don't want us to give it religious coloration. Rather, we should treat them as criminals, armed bandits, and direct the security agents to get them apprehended and prosecute them accordingly. Mr. President, that's my contribution. Thank you.
Senator Binta Masi.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Binta Masi Garba, Adamawa North Senatorial Zone, Adamawa State. Areas where I wanted to touch, I think Senator Alero has made mention of that. So we shouldn't be sentimental when we come to a crisis, in situations like this. When Boko Haram incident started in Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa State, it didn't start on individual, it started in mosques. Most of the clergymen, the Muslim Ummas, were killed during the prayer session. The crisis in Adamawa, Yobe, and Borno, when it occurred, they don't know who is a Muslim, who is a Christian, or he is a pagan. So we have to be very, very careful when we are discussing issues, because there are two masters that wants to destroy this country, and it is religion and ethnicity. Senator Mao made mention of the security agencies that we have here. But sir, our borders are porous. Almost 8 to 9 states, a quarter of this nation is under siege. You can call it whatever name you want to call. Again, Nigeria is surrounded, about another quarter of a state is surrounded within the border area. I can give an example, sir. My senatorial zone is a border town sharing with the Cameroon. And I know that of Borno and Yobe with the Chad. When you now come to western part, Katsina and Kebbi and Jigawa is sharing another border town. Kwara is sharing a border town. Lagos is sharing a border town. Kebbi is sharing a border town. Cross River and Ogun State are all sharing border towns. But our border towns are porous. What is the immigration agencies, or agencies doing? So we've talked about Libya bringing in all the ammunition in here. They must have gone through a border town. So if we want to look at this thing, we have to look at it holistically. All the military and paramilitary. Answer, the military is overstretched. And we cannot have almost 33 states out of 36 is in dear need of the military personnel. And the essence of the military is to protect our territorial borders, integrities of borders. But now they are doing the work that is not their own responsibility. So if we want to tackle those things, we have to tackle it holistically. We have to look at all the apparatus of government in terms of security, and we have to look at what is. So in fact, if you go to the border, even your national flag is in Tata. There are some certain villages that you have to go. In my local government, Michika local government, you have to pass through the Cameroons. But when you come to the Cameroonian borders, you have virtually everybody at the border town. I remember the former deputy speaker had his ammunition on him with his ADC. They refused this guy with the ammunition to cross the border. But our border, even our flag, is in Tata. So we need to look into that and know that, yes, Nigeria is under siege, and every one of us has a responsibility, irrespective of our geopolitical divide, and see how we can tackle it well. Senator Alero has said, we've gone and had a security summit. What comes out of the security summit, sir? And again, there is another colleague of ours, I think Senator, that has a bill that has to do about the border control. What are we doing about that? We discussed before now, sir, the government getting involved in getting some certain funds so that we can see how the security and the protections of every Nigerian should be taken into. Zamfara State is predominantly a Muslim community. But today, on Tuesday, sir, something happened. Senator Kabiru came in and said over 50 people were killed. Senator Maunana said there are other communal crises. We now talked about Benue. So these issues now, we have to look at it and help the system so that we can have a convenient and a conducive environment where we can all call our own country Nigeria. So I add my voice in appreciating Senator Akume. Thank you very much.
Senator Jeremiah Osini.
Thank you, Mr. President, my colleagues, very distinguished senators. I thank you for this opportunity given to me. This is a very important subject we are talking about. Concern lives and properties, though property may not be very important now because of loss of lives. The way we are handling this thing, this problem will never finish. Because some people are taking advantage of them. 2 days ago, I was watching the House of Reps investigation on NEMA, and you'll be surprised. The Director General looks so foolish. He could not answer some of the questions. He was even putting some names which are outside Bauchi. Later, he apologized that it was a mistake. You can't go and put Wuse to say in Nasarawa. I'm just giving an example of how it behaved. And the instruction was very clear. Go and discuss with the states in the northeast. He discussed with only 3. And yet, he went and wrote that they have made supply to all the states. And the state complained. Bauchi, Adamawa, and in fact, the other one, what is this? No, not Yobe. the one properly controlled by PDP. No, not Taraba, not Taraba. Gombe. The Secretary of Government of Gombe was there, and the other farm stakes, they were all there. And they said they never received anything at all. So what happened is that they've been selling this thing and allocating them as having been supplied to some of these states. I'm sure by the time the House of Rep finishes its investigation and presents its report, it will be very, very shocking. I believe also that even the military, if they are given specific time and specific period, as somebody suggested, they will get rid of all this nonsense. We had this thing before. I was involved in some of the things, and we did within a short period. But now you have people just wasting time building guest houses, Air Force establishing a hospital in the fighting areas. That's not on at all. We fought battle for 3 years. The hospital we used were abandoned schools where there were no people there. That is what we used for hospital. People are building hospitals, putting all sorts of things instead of looking at the problem at hand and then make sure that the soldiers are doing the job properly. Any soldier that doesn't do his job properly, it might be removed. And if you kill unnecessarily, you'll be shot also. So there must be discipline, and I think the Senate also need to call the service chief. Let them come and tell us. Let them call the service chief to come and brief us here. We hear of division. Are they sure that the division they are calling, or the unit they are calling division, are up to division? Or they're just calling them division just to get some allowances? So this is very serious. We must look at it. But I think there are a lot of things they can do. Thank you very much.
Samayo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. My name is Sam Ayang, I represent Imo East in Imo State. On behalf of the people of Imo East that I represent, I want to condole with the people of our government of Benue State, especially the Catholic faithfuls in that particular state. Because I'm a communicant, I'm a Catholic, I was born a Catholic, I'll remain a Catholic, and I'll die a Catholic. So whatever it is, I defend my faith. I want to disagree with what Senator Francis Alimikena said, that we should invite, is it Mitiala? We have been told severally that these people are not herdsmen. They are foreigners. And as such, I expect that the federal government should declare these people terrorists so that we can treat them as such. Because when you tell me that these people, they are in cells, they move from one section to the other, unless we are meant to understand that they are spirits. If they are indeed human beings, I don't think there's no way they cannot be, found where they are. Mr. President, there are too many killings, and every day I feel very worried and ashamed. One day I was going on my way to the US. I had a transit in Amsterdam, Lufthansa, Hamburg. We were having a discussion. I met a Canadian who I was trying to convince to come and invest in Nigeria. If you see the ugly story this man said about Nigeria in terms of the killings, was so frightening. And what this is going to do, the long effect of these killings in Nigeria, there are two things. One is that very soon there's going to be food scarcity, because all these people from Benue, Plateau, Nasarawa, Taraba, these people are predominantly farmers, and they produce what goes to other parts of this country. And if we allow this to continue, they won't go to farm again. What does that mean? There will be shortage of food, and there will be problem. And we are fighting food security in this country. Again, we must be very careful. Yes, I agree that both Muslims and and Christians are being killed in this process. But we must, as a country, come together to fight this, so that it will not bring religious crisis, just like everyone has tried to avoid. It is very, very important. Again, Mr. President, I want to say, the service chiefs, we have invited, we invited the IG of police here to come and brief us today. I don't know whether it's coming or not. It is important. We must also engage the service chiefs. It is important, because if we don't engage them or have an interface with them to be able to know as an institution what has really gone wrong. And because if the truth of the matter is that if we cannot find any other help, Nigeria has signed so many bilateral businesses with other countries. Nigeria is a developing country. We look into these developed countries to help us curb this issue. Because the time will come, there's nothing you can tell me now. No amount of money you give me to go to Plenary and sleep overnight, I will not go. Because everyone is afraid. So I think it's important, as an institution, we must look at this. It is, to me, and I want to believe, that some people are gaining from this thing that's happening. Because people are supplying these weapons to these people, and they will never let it stop. Because this is the only way they can sell their arms. We must look at this. And because if you say they are no longer herdsmen, which we have all agreed here is they are not herdsmen, is this a special herdsmen so that we can give them a special name? We call them terrorist herdsmen. Because everybody is in confusion. If we receive message from our brothers and sisters from overseas, what they hear, they will tell you, oh, they say they killed another people. And the way it's going is very frightening. I think it's important, Mr. President, that the service chiefs should be invited. Our counterparts in the House of Reps, they have passed vote of no confidence. But I think as an institution, we must first of all engage them, have an interface with them, and let us know what the problem is. Because I am aware that a lot of funds are being made available to do all these security agencies. So we want to know what they have done with it. So I think it's important we must engage them, have an interface with them, and be able to know what the problem is all about. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Ogba.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, it is really pity and annoying that instead of us to be doing those things that we're elected to come and do here, what is facing us now every day is killing. Mr. President, my comment on this issue is very simple. I want to suggest, even though my colleague and my very good friend has made a suggestion of inviting the service chiefs, I think this matter has overgrown that. Mr. President, I want to suggest that since yesterday, the House of Representatives has invited the Mr. President, I want to suggest that we should have a joint session. We should have a joint session whereby Mr. President should be invited to come and address us, to tell us about the situation of security in this country, so that we will know. It will also give him opportunity for the country, for us to know what he's doing to stop these killings. Because if we every day we continue to make suggestions, we invite, even IG we invited today, up to now I have no sign to show that he's coming here. So the service, inviting service chief, they will just come here and speak the grammar. The bus stop of all these things we are saying, stop in Mr. President's table. Whatever Mr. President tells us is what we take as the final issue. He is the commander-in-chief of this Federal Republic of Nigeria. It's not good that every day we stand up here, we continue to say there are so many killings, there are so killings. Or if we are going to
legislate that everybody should be armed. Let us pass the bill, and Mr. President should assign it to law, so that everybody in Nigeria should now be armed, so that people can defend themselves. The worst thing that can happen to a man is that when you say you want to go to market, before you come back, you can't meet anybody in your house again. Are we going to continue like this? So, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this is my own suggestion. Thank you for the opportunity, sir.
Distinguished colleagues, I think there's somebody else who very strongly wants to contribute, because we've heard a lot of the contributions. Where my concern, where I'm coming in now, is that, well, apart from the last few speakers, we're beginning to see suggestions of way forward. Because going through these prayers that I see here, they really do not mean anything or touch the direction. We were here, as you rightly said, when Senator Gemade came up some time ago, and now Senator Akume. And as you all rightly observed, then we're talking about herdsmen and farmers. Now we're talking about herdsmen and religious leaders. And we all know that the dimension it is taking, or what they can take from that, can lead to a serious crisis in this country. And it means that we need drastic action. We must say, no, these killings daily has to stop. And in our contributions, I will just allow 2 or 3 is, what do we do? We can't continue to say we are leaders. This is failure. There's no doubt about it. You can't. So we must say what needs to be done. We have made ourselves available, as you rightly said. We've done a summit. We are available, whatever, but we must be able. So what, I think 1 or 2 have spoken. If anybody has to speak now, just take 2, is what do we do differently to just saying we get up, we tell NEMA, the same NEMA we are telling, I think they were under some kind of investigation or misappropriation. So that cannot be the solution. The solution has to be what do we really do? Because it's amazing. Not even a constable or an officer has been held, has been sanctioned for this kind of thing. We can't continue like this. So to me, my own is that I will go to prayers, and I would like us to really come up with significant things that will do that truly we begin to see the seriousness of where we are in going forward. So if anybody, yes, leader here.
Maybe before the prayers, Mr. President, it's important that I draw the attention of this Senate to the invitation by the House of Representatives for Mr. President. Maybe we take advantage of that and do a joint session so that we can approach this matter holistically. The reason why I'm saying that is that I cannot understand a situation, Mr. President, where killings of this nature will happen, no arrest, nothing, as if they are, so something is definitely wrong. So maybe, sir, it is important that when we take advantage of this, meet with the House, let us have a joint sitting so that we can now capture the entire essence of this matter. I think we have reached a stage now where something drastic, something serious must be done as far as this issue is concerned.
You see, can I just go to, we go to prayers. Okay. If you permit, then we would really take the first prayer as a recommendation, and then I think we really need to now go to additional prayers, because all prayers 2 to 7 are prayers that have always been with us. So I'll put the question. Those in favor of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Additional prayers. Yes. Well, there's one that has come up by the leader. Yes, go ahead, leader. Just so.
That. Okay, you can do.
Okay, Senator Ogba. Let Senator Obina Ogba from Ebonyi.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Mr. Additional prayer is that the Senate with the leadership should meet with the House of Representatives for us to have a joint session whereby Mr. President will be invited to address us on the situation of security in this country.
No, I think all the leadership can do is regards of date. The prayer should be first man that the Senate agrees there should be a joint. There should be something of the Mr. President to address us in the joint session. Then all our leadership can do is to meet with the speaker there to agree on a date. Yes. Yeah, okay. So somebody second that, please. Yes, and to Binta.
Binta Masigarba, Adama North, Adama State. I rise to second the motion that is being moved by Senator Kogba, that the Senate and the House do have a joint session with the Mr. President. I so second.
Those in favor of the additional prayer that the Senate and the House should summon the President on this matter of security on a joint session. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Then there was also a contribution by Senator Alero saying that the report from the summit should be for consideration. I think that...
Mr. President, I thought we are asking that the President should address the two chambers on this, but the word summon, sir, is what I'm not.
Address. Okay, address. Yeah, next is the issue of the summit. Yes, which again we need somebody to move that as additional prayer. Yes, leader.
That the Senate Ad hoc Committee on the Security Summit should expedite action on the submission of the report of our last summit on security. I so move, sir.
Second, yeah, Senator Leader, Senator Abu Ibrahim.
I second the motion moved by the leader, legal language, that the submit report should be submitted to be discussed here.
Those in favor of this additional prayer that the report and recommendation of the summit report should be brought for consideration. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Yes, Senator Lidani.
Yes. My name is Joshua Lidani, Mr. President. I'd like to suggest that we invoke Section 305 of the Constitution to ask the President to declare a state of emergency in the endemic states of after the briefing.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was one of the reasons why I felt that briefing was important, because it's following the briefing that we can really know, because that's also the only reason also I think that we should not take the issue of the vote of consent. Let us get the briefing again from Mr. President before we can now take the action on those two issues, on both the state of emergency and the issue of the status of the state of the service chiefs. Any other additional? If not, we can rise to observe the one. Senator Akume, yes.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I still want to believe that in view of the large number of people, these internally displaced people, there is a need for NEMA to support this relief exercise. And two,
we are taking all other prayers are taking. The reason why we didn't put the emphasis on it, we said that those prayers we also take them. So let's take it as is that those prayers are taken as well. All right. So can we please get up to observe the inside one of the dead? May the gents rest perfect peace. Amen. So once again, Senator Akume, on behalf of all of us, please accept our condolences for what has happened. As we said, these are just one too many of of these killings. And as somebody said, these are criminals, these are armed bandits, and they're not ethnic or religious based. And it is clear that if we do not do something, it will take a coloration that might create further crisis in this country. And that is why it is need for Mr. President to come and address the two joint chambers. I will meet with the Speaker to look at that as soon as possible. We can do that, and hope at that opportunity as well, we will also be able to better advise on whether there is need for state of emergencies to be declared in those states, and secondly, why the leadership of those security agents do not also require changes in order to give confidence in the system. But clearly something needs to be done, and we will make sure that something is done. Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, the third order of the day is the briefing by the Inspector General of Police on the arrest of distinguished Senator Dino Melai and killings across the country. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, you will recall that the Senate resolved to invite the Inspector General of Police to appear before the Senate today to brief the distinguished Senate on the arrest of distinguished Senator Dino Melai and the killings around the country. Mr. President, distinguished senators, in order to carry out this exercise in conformity with the standing orders of Order 17, floor privileges, I would like to move two motions. But before I do so, sir, it appears the motions may not necessarily be appropriate in view of the fact that the senior special advisor to the President on National Assembly matters approached me this afternoon and intimated me of the fact that the Inspector General of Police is out of town, that he's in Bauchi with Mr. President. And I don't know what directives we will receive from our colleagues in view of this development. I seek for guidance, Mr. President.
Senator Abu Ibrahim.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, for information, the DIG operations is around in case the Senate would like to hear from him.
Are you suggesting that we invite the DIG operations of the IG? Huh? Okay, let me take contributions from the members, then we decide on what to do. Okay, guidance. Okay, leader.
Well, by the vote and proceedings approved this morning, sir, the resolution of the Senate is clear and unambiguous, and that it is the person of the Inspector General of Police that is expected to appear before the Senate. Mr. President, in as much as I would love to lay credence to the request by my brother and friend and colleague, distinguished Senator Abu Ibrahim, I think it will not be right for us to go against the specific provisions of our vote and proceedings, which we have approved today, to listen to any other person other than Inspector General of Police. So my opinion on this is that I urge my colleagues that we step down this matter until he finds it expedient for him to appear before the Senate. But before I do so, sir, I have a responsibility as a leader in this Senate, and I'm happy distinguished Senator Abu Ibrahim is here. This Senate is or consists of the elected representatives of the 180 million Nigerians. So the invitation to the Inspector General of Police is by these 180 million people through their representatives. The way I see the institution of democracy being treated, as a leader, I think I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable in view of the fact that I know, Mr. President, if there is any legacy that Mr. President wants to leave to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, is the enthronement of rule of law and due process, because it is the basis upon which we campaign and won election. Let me say that it is in the best interest of those he has offered to give appointment, to understand the fact that they will be doing him more good by making themselves available and submitting themselves to the authority of the people who elected Mr. President and elected us here. I try as much as I can as a leader to restrain myself from offering guidance of this nature. But you see, sir, we will be in our grave one day. And the records of this Senate may be in the dustbin. I do not want a situation where my grandchild will look at the record of the Senate, or the Senate in particular, of which I'm a leader, and then have what he can rely upon to say that his grandfather was a stupid person. I don't want that situation, sir. So let me say that all those who have been given appointment based on trust by Mr. President have a corresponding responsibility to portray Mr. President in the light in which he has always campaigned around this country and from which the international community has held him in high esteem. I am really very, very uncomfortable that the IG, aware of the seriousness and the invitation of the Senate, will be somewhere else to offer explanation not to be here. So let it be on record that I put this on record, and I urge my colleagues to please grant us the convenience of allowing the IG to appear before us at such other days as maybe through the chairman's police committee, he will make himself available. Thank you.
Senator Mao, then I'll come to Bauchi and Akpabio.
My name is Senator Mao. I want to a rider to the statement of the deputy leader, and standing on that, I just want to say that we should, as a body, as a Senate, give the IG a specific date. And if he fails to appear, then we know that will be an affront. Because like the leader, deputy leader said, I don't see any other function or job that will be more important than the invitation of the parliament, especially the Senate. But let's give that, let's take that as given. But all I'm saying is that let's decide here that by Wednesday, this IG must appear before the Senate. Whether it's 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. or 12, let's decide here, not allowing him to give us time. We should give him time. Thank you.
Senator Bocha.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. I think what I will say is not very far from what my colleague, Senator Nala, had said, but I will add just very few remarks. The Parliament has suffered a lot of humiliation because of the system we operate. I'm happy to say that in our midst, seated, there are governors who had superintended over states and have had cause to deal with state assemblies. Now, I don't want to go into what has become a systemic problem. The joy I have is that most of these governors have understood in one way or the other that if what happens here had happened in the state, probably our democracy will have graduated from what is very popular in the Nigerian media as a nascent democracy. The truth of the matter is everybody thinks the parliament should be treated as an appendage of the executive. That is not supposed to be. And when we seek to operate independently, it is not in any way at all trying to disregard an individual or disrespect the executive. We must learn to know this. If we don't know this, we bring to bear maybe some primordial sentiment. It will not work. And it will not be good for all of us. I have nothing at stake in all of this. But my advice is, let us know that we're leaving behind an institution that others will come and require some form of respect. I had cause, Mr. President, to interact with one of the service chiefs, whose ingenuity I must respect and acknowledge. I told him that a lot of those who are appointed by Mr. President are the ones that are responsible for the anger that is being displayed against the president. And he agreed with me. Because once the president appoints you, you are supposed to be his ambassador. But you go and sit there and begin to think you will load it over people. This is not a military regime. This is democracy. And each arm of government, as we know from the American democratic reform, whose pattern we are copying, presupposes that each arm of this government is independent. But here we look at it differently because of our experience in military rule. I want to add that let us seek at all times to defend the institution and not be carried away by any sentiment. Once a president is a president, commander-in-chief of the Federal Republic, once a governor is governor of a state, a parliamentarian should be treated as such. It is because of lack of understanding of this device that has brought us where we are. Now that you see people can walk in here and take away this mess, and nothing will happen to them. Because a lot of things, the dynamics are so funny. People behave as if once you are protected by the security officials, you are safe. Nothing will happen to you. Those are the impunities that we must seek to discourage. So once we invite whether the chief of staff to the president or even the president himself, there is nothing unusual. It's not disrespecting him, no, it's not. But we don't understand it. When we speak in this wise, people, you are trying to disrespect. It's not like that. We need to talk, we need to dialogue, we need to interact. So I think it's good we see the IG, and let us not make it look as if the IG is the IG of police, we want to see him. Tell us why this is this. He has his reasons that we may not know, and we want to hear from him. So I think, Mr. President, I concur with the position of the leader of the Senate, and let us just do that. I thank you.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, my respected colleagues. I don't think we need to debate this issue. I think even I believe strongly that even the Inspector General of Police will be very glad to come and brief the Senate, and if need be, even a joint session, so that we can go back to our various constituencies and allay the fears. Like I said, there's a lot of anxiety in the land. The killings are now happening with the kind of frequency that so many people now feel unsafe. People feel unsafe traveling. For them to walk into a church, kill, worshippers, even kill the Reverend Fathers like common criminals, wasted them. The godly sites are such that we should not allow our children to see. So it's the aspect of inviting the Inspector General of Police was what I saw, just came in this morning, where a senator was handcuffed. In fact, I don't want to say anything until the Inspector General of Police comes, because I was given this national honor, Commander of the Order of the Niger, and I asked them if they could monetize it, and they said no, because if you go to the airport, you pay money to sit down in VIP, you pay money to pass through the gate, you do this. So sometimes I used to ask myself, what then is the need for the Commander of the Order of the Niger? So if the Constitution says that a senator is distinguished, what makes you distinguished if you can be arrested the way I saw on the social media? So I think that there are issues outside even our colleagues that the Inspector General of Police would like to brief us on. And what I loved was the aspect of adding the aspect of the continuous killings and what kind of measures the IG and the entire police force are taking to arrest the situation. So the chairman of police affairs committee, I don't know whether the DIG had something to say, but he can say that privately to you. But I think it's important that this Hallowed Chamber should host the Inspector General of Police, and I'm sure, if not because of the President's visit to Bauchi, he would have loved to be here so that at least he can throw more perspective on the situation, and then from there we'll be better informed.
Distinguished colleagues, I've taken the contributions. I think the general concept. Sam, okay, yes, go ahead. Don't let me deprive you of.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sam Egwu, I represent Ebonyi North Senatorial District. Mr. President, yesterday you told us how you made efforts to get in touch with the IG, and that was not possible. We in this Senate also agreed that the IG should come and brief us today. He did not appear. Granted the fact that Mr. President has traveled and is supposed to be in his entourage, nothing bad about it. But I want to agree with what one of my colleagues said here, that sometimes people are appointed by Mr. President, or those who work, who are the aides of those appointed, make things difficult and create avoidable disputes. I am aware, and I believe, that Mr. Etana, or Senator Etana, and Senator Abu Ibrahim may have got pre-knowledge that the IG will not be here today because he's accompanying Mr. President to Bauchi. And they could have simply advised him, Mr. IG, even though you are not coming, why don't you put it in writing and give reasons why he will not be here? I'm sure that if he has done that, this anger will not arise. Then just ignoring the entire Senate, and then somebody coming to tell us that he traveled with Mr. President. I think these are avoidable issues that if he has done, I mean, there's no need having problems where there should not be problems. He has accompanied Mr. President, he has right to be there. But why don't you just write a letter? Please transmit this letter to the Senate. If he doesn't know, they should advise him. That is why they are close to him. So I raise my case, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, we've taken the contributions. The general consensus is that we give a specific date, which looks like Wednesday, we say same time, 11 o'clock, for him to appear. But as we do that, I think I want to take cue from the comments of the leader, which I have strong views as well, that the dignity and the integrity of our democratic authority, we must protect it. And we must not allow anybody to show any disrespect or denigrate that authority. As I said to you the other day, and I'm sure Senator Abu Ibrahim too is here, will confirm, neither Senator Abu Ibrahim, neither myself has received any response from the IG in the last 42 hours. Sending his DIG is not respectful enough. He should have had the respect of this institution to reach the chairman and myself to explain. We've all been chief executives. Mr. President is going to Bauchi to commission a project to do with the Air Force. He's only accompanying the president. President, if you had said to Mr. President, the killings that are going on, it is important I go to Parliament, I am very sure Mr. President will say, IG, that is more important, go to Parliament. And this is the point we are making, that those who are appointed, who are creating more problems. Somebody said to me the other day when I was saying, he said if a former minister who has been suspended by the president breaks into villa, into council chambers and does some kind of mischief, would the IG not feel he needs to report to the president on what action they have taken since? Nothing. This cannot be the kind of democratic setting we expect. As you rightly said, we must ensure that things are done properly. We give him Wednesday, 11 o'clock, for him to come here to explain to us what is happening in this country regarding these killings. What do we need to do collectively to bring an end to these killings? And what are those challenges, and why are we having these issues? I don't think there's anything more important today than these issues. So let us wait when it comes on Wednesday to address that, so that we can now find a way forward on these areas. So if you all agree with me, I will say we take Wednesday, 11 a.m., the IG comes here and gives reports before the Senate. Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is the consideration of the report of the Committee on Public Accounts on the investigation of all subsidy money spent by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC) without recourse to National Assembly. Mr. President and distinguished senators will recall that the report of the committee was laid on Thursday, the 12th day of April 2018. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Matthew Orogide to move the motion for the Senate to consider the report.
Senator Matthew Orogide.
He's not in a good mood.
Distinguished colleagues, please let us bear with Senator Matthew Orogide on the mood, because the budget process is ongoing, and one of their recommendations has to do with what we do on 2018 budget, and so we just have, maybe we'll try and be as brief as possible. So if you move your motion for us, and I'll get someone to second it, then you can go and give us your report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I'm Senator Matthew Orogide. I represent Edo South Senatorial District. Mr. President, I stand to move that the Senate do consider the report of the Committee on Public Accounts on the investigation of all subsidy monies spent by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC) without recourse to the National Assembly. I so move, Mr. President.
Senator Kaura.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Tijani Hayakaura. I represent Zamfara North Senatorial District. Mr. President, I second the motion moved by Senator Matthew for the Senate to consider the report on the Senate Public Accounts Committee on the investigation of all subsidy money spent by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC) without recourse to the National Assembly. I so second, Mr. President. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do consider the report of the Committee on Public Accounts on the investigation of all subsidy monies spent by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation without recourse to National Assembly. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Matthew Orogide, present your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I'm Senator Matthew Orogide. I represent the South Senatorial District. Mr. President, I stand here to send the report of the Committee on Public Accounts on the investigation of all subsidy money spent by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC) without recourse to the National Assembly. The Senate, at its sitting on Wednesday, 17 January 2018, considered the interim report of the Senate Committee on Petroleum Downstream on the investigation of the lingering premium motor spirit crisis across the country, and in a resolution S/ROES/151/03/18 mandated the Senate Public Account Committee to investigate all subsidy monies already spent by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC) without recourse to the National Assembly. Mr. President, quickly move to methodology for the exigency of time. The committee met after the referral and resolved to adopt the following modalities to aid in carrying out the investigation. Number one, identifying the major stakeholders. Two, request for inputs and documents on the subject matter from the stakeholders. Three, invite stakeholders to the investigative hearing. Four, conduct investigative hearing with the stakeholders. The investigation at the period as under reference was between January to December 2017. Well, Mr. President, on three, we have submissions from all the stakeholders, going from NNPC, that made their own submission, Nigerian Port Authority made their own, Nigerian Port Authority made their submission, Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NIMASA made their submission, the Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria, MOMA, made their submission, Port Oil too made their submission, Total Nigeria PLC made their submission, Con Oil made their submission, and then, of course, two PLC, formerly Mobile Oil Nigeria Limited, made their submission. MROS Oil Nigeria made their submission. Low VH Energy Marketing made their submission. Petroleum Product Pricing and Regulatory Agency, PPPROA, made their submission. Federal Ministry of Finance made a submission. Central Bank of Nigeria,
the Accountant General of the Federation, Department of Petroleum Resources, DPRO made their submission. So, Petroleum Equalization Fund Management Board made their submission, and then the Depot and Petroleum Marketer Association of Nigeria, DAPMA, made their submission. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the committee sat for time to receive presentations from the stakeholders who were placed on oath and testified before the committee. The committee cross-examined them accordingly. The following agencies testified before the committee. Just like I've mentioned before, the names are all there, the number 10. Then I go to findings, Mr. President. In course of the investigative hearing, the committee found out that 1, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NPC) is the sole importer of petroleum or premium motor spirit during the period that is under investigation, that is from January to December 2017. 2, almost all the major marketers have stopped importing premium motor spirit fuel because of the negative difference in the landing cost and the selling pump price. Then 3, the landing cost of PMS per liter varies based on international price and exchange rate. The average landing cost, inclusive of all charges, within the period of investigation is about 171 naira, while the approved selling pump price is 145 naira, giving a negative difference, what NNPC has described as under recovery of the sum of 26 naira. Number 4, the differential, that is under recovery sum of 26 naira, borne by NNPC as a loss in 2017, amounted to the sum of 216 billion naira. Number 5, the NNPC paid itself the differentials, that is the 216 billion naira, but described it as operational cost. Number 6, that there was no appropriation by the National Assembly for the payment of the differentials between the landing cost of PMS and the selling pump price, otherwise known as subsidy, in 2017. And number 7, Mr. President, over the years, that is since 1999, there has been appropriation for payment of differentials between the landing cost of PMS and the selling pump price, otherwise known as subsidy. The table below shows the difference, evidence of appropriation for subsidy payments to NNPC and other oil marketers from 2010 to 2016. In 2010, we gave a figure, what went to NNPC over 217 billion, plus went to other marketers 204 billion, which amounted to about 491 billion. Then in 2011, we had about 108.9 billion that went to NNPC, 137 billion went to other oil marketers, making a total of over 225.9 billion. In 2012, of course, the combination of NNPC and other marketers had 888 billion that went as total. Then, of course, in 2013, 971 billion went as subsidy. In 2014, 971 again went as subsidy, 971 billion. Then, of course, in 2015, over 100 billion went as subsidy. Then in 2017, the arrears of 2015 subsidy on domestic consumption all came to over 150 billion. So between the period of 2010 and 2016, government paid a total of, the appropriation that was made was 3.8 trillion naira. In 2017, NNPC, that is the year under review, Mr. President, NNPC imported 9.8 billion liters of PMS at the cost of $5.4 billion US dollars, amounting to 1.672 trillion at the exchange rate of 305. In the previous years, all importers, including the NNPC, had collected subsidy for differentials. It is therefore curious that NNPC will, in the year 2017, describe the differentials as operating costs and a loss, but will not demand for a refund. Number 8, the selling price of PMS at 145 per litre varies across the country. And then number 9, that there is a challenge of smuggling of petroleum products across the country, border to neighboring countries. So, Mr. President, 6 to go to a recommendation that has been made by the committee to this August body. Number 1, that the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC) should stop the illegal payments without appropriation henceforth. Number 2, that the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, through Mr. President, should make a formal request to the National Assembly for appropriation for the illegal payments that were made during this period. Mr. President, you can see that this is akin to what had earlier come up, that where funds are being spent without appropriation, and is one of the very strong reasons why we have made this position very clear that these are clear violations of our constitution. Number 3, that there is need for the federal government to pay the oil marketers the outstanding arrears of subsidy owed them prior to 2017, because this has been the reason why we had that scarcity, as other marketers were not ready to do importation, because all that the government had owed them prior to that time, government had fallen short of its responsibility or obligation to them. Then number 4, that local refineries be given maximum attention to enable them function in full capacity, so that at least we can diminish the volume of PMS that is imported into this country that is causing hardship for our people. And number 7, Mr. President, in conclusion, the chairman, on behalf of members of the committee, wishes to express the committee's appreciation to the Senate leadership and the entire Senate for the confidence reposed in them to serve the Senate in this capacity. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and distinguished colleagues.
Any comments before we go to recommendations? Otherwise,
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, let me thank the chairman, Senator Orogide, and the members, and to say that at the time I was getting confused. I believe that part of why we wanted these committees headed by the public accounts to look into this issue was because of the assertion here before us by the Minister of State Petroleum that the issue of subsidy had actually been taken care of, and that there was no longer any subsidy in Nigeria. He made that statement here in 2016 as part of what the government had been able to achieve. So by 2017, we now heard that there was a lot of payment from NNPC, and that was about subsidy. So, of course, the Harrow Chambers, on behalf of the good people of Nigeria, wanted to know why, after the fact that we had solved the issue of subsidy, not just on the PMS alone, but that even there was even the allegation that there were payments made on even kerosene subsidy, which were hitherto non-existent. And so this committee had to look into the issue. But now the committee is coming back to tell us that even the arrears of those who have not been paid, arrears of those who supplied PMS and that they had not received their subsidy, that they should pay them immediately. And then at the same time, NNPC should no longer pay out money without coming to the parliament. In other words, the committee's report is legalizing the issue of subsidy, which NNP itself, through the Minister of State Petroleum, said was no longer an issue in Nigeria. This is where my confusion lies. Mr. President, I rest my case. I don't want to make further comments.
if you don't go to recommendation, unless anybody has strong issues. Yes, Senator Jibril.
Mr. President, I'm Barao Jibril. I just want to commend the committee for having done a very good job. And the recommendations are also something to commend them for coming up with them. And for that reason, I think we should go ahead and approve the report of the committee.
Senator, may you have something? Yeah, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, looking at this report, I'm amazed and worried that this issue of subsidy is a very big problem in Nigeria. From the table produced here, between 2010 and 2016, the government has spent over 3.8 trillion naira. And yet, the problems we've continued to have
over petroleum products in this country have defied solution. We are owing marketers for the supplies they made up to 2016. The NNPC declared operating loss for 2017. One is constrained to ask if the managers of our oil industry or the government of Nigeria had anticipated over time that there was a compelling need to halt this importation of petroleum products, particularly as we have crude. We produce crude. That's the only major thing we produce and sell to the international community. Why can't we have functional refineries in Nigeria? The recommendation here that local refineries need to be encouraged to begin to refine these products appear to me as begging the question. This country has embarked on so many turnaround maintenance programs in the past. Port Harcourt Refinery, Kaduna Refinery, Warri Refinery. A lot of money pumped into this turnaround maintenance, and we have not gained anything from it. I was wondering that in 8 years, if the government of Nigeria had started a new refinery to bring Nigeria out of this problem, how much will it cost Nigerian government to do it? Private investors are building refineries in Nigeria now, in Lekki and maybe in some other places. But why can't government, the biggest spender, the owner of the money, which we earn through sale of crude oil, why can't they plan to build refinery and save Nigerians from this problem? The PMS pump price at 145. The chairman of the committee merely said the price varies across the country. There was a time we were buying it 200 and something naira in the east, in Enugu, 200 and something naira. So if it is not because of corruption, Mr. President, if it's not because some people are feeding fat on Nigeria through this subsidy regime, government and the people in the oil sector managing it on behalf of Nigeria would have...
Point of order, leader.
Now, with your permission, Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, as I will suspend our order to enable us sit beyond 2 o'clock, I so move, Mr. President.
Minority leader. No.
The president as minority leader. Nala is the opposition leader. I rise to second the motion that we extend our sitting beyond 2 o'clock. I say second.
Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. Yes, and to me.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me conclude by saying that we need to look for way out of this problem. And the only way I can foresee is if we can have refineries that refine these products in Nigeria locally. And Nigeria can afford it. This money they are spending on the petroleum subsidy regime over 8 years is sufficient to set up a refinery in Nigeria. And we'll use the crude which God has given us to refine these products and then make it available to Nigerians at very affordable rates. This is my submission. And corruption is the problem. So if we are going to deal with it, we have to tackle it head on. People are feeding fat on this import regime, subsidy regime. Let's dispense with it and then find a way of building refineries. Government can commit money. We can set up 2 refineries within 5 years in Nigeria, and we'll be out of this trouble. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Lamleko.
Thank you, Mr. President. My own contribution will be very brief, and I want to commend the chairman of the committee for doing a very good job. But, Mr. President, I just want the chairman to, at least, for some clarification. Number one, the amount of illegal deduction that has been reported, I can't see the actual figure here. Are we taking a cue from page 15, where the domestic subsidy, NNPC marketer, and the total of 3.8 is what the total amount of illegal deduction is, or what is the actual figure of this illegal deduction that has been made by the government to date? Because that will guide our line of thinking while we look into, because in one of his recommendations, he said they should stop this illegal deduction without appropriation. So what is this actual amount? We would like to know, and we need the details to guide our position concerning each recommendation. That's my observation.
Okay, let me, I think I need to put some clarity into this, because as some of you might know, I spent a lot of time in 7th Assembly on this issue of subsidy. I think the recommendation 2 of the chairman there is the one that is creating the problem, because he is requesting for appropriation for illegal payments. I think that is the wrong word. The appropriation we're asking for is appropriation going for 2018. The issue of illegal payments, that has happened. That is a different subject matter on its own, which we can decide how we're going to address that. But the important thing is that NNPC cannot continue going forward making those payments without appropriation, because definitely there's subsidy going on now, and it needs to be backed by law, which has always been since 1999. There has been appropriation for fuel subsidy. It stopped briefly, but now NNPC is using the absurd word that is operational cost. And you all know that this is not operational cost. This is for being imported. How that becomes an operational cost, it's even an insult on the integrity of Nigerians to use such a word. So I think we need to bring legality, and because even this kind of reports, the IMF see them, and it's an embarrassment to us as a country. So I think it is that there are two issues here: illegal payments that have been made. That's one. Going forward for 2018 budget, we should put the figure that will capture the entire subsidy of 2018, so that when they do make those payments, they are not any longer illegal payments. It is backed by appropriation. And if we agree that they should pay outstanding arrears, then government will put that as part of the subsidy. So I think that is, if there's any other question for clarity, yeah, Senator Akume.
Well, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Senator Akume, Benue Northwest. Mr. President, listen to your explanation, but let me also emphasize one point, which you touched very slightly. During the 7th Senate, you raised a very topical issue, a very tough motion on this subsidy. What we are seeing is subsidy in parentheses. That's number one. Number two, the chairman of this committee is a very, very thorough person. We could see him in action during the morning session. He was very vibrant. He's someone who wants us to keep to the rules of the game. If you go wrong, you must be punished. I'm surprised that what he said in the morning conflicts what is recommended. I used him to. But that's why I just.
I will leave him to defend that part. I'm just strictly talking about subsidy. We'll go back to him to tell us why there's that vacuum, and he will make necessary explanation.
These recommendations are supposed to be very, very strong, and they are not. NPC is the live wire of our own economy. And if something goes wrong, we must have a very serious approach that seeks to bring out real solutions. And so when we say that this is very well done, we should just do it, no, this year we have crime and punishment. That's the normal thing. So if there is a crime, there should be some punishment and it should be commensurate. But if you believe that what has happened is in the best interest of the country, let us know. If it is not, because there are some things we do which morally can be defended, but legally they may not be defended. But you have left it so loose. So honestly, Mr. President, that's what I just wanted to point.
Thank you for your guidance. We'll give Senator Matthew an opportunity to respond on that. Let me just take more comments, and then you will tell us maybe you have additional recommendation in light of that. Yeah, Senator Alero.
Thank you, Mr. President. One more issue based on the recommendation that I made. You see, the government has been saying time without number that there is no subsidy. We had that not once, not twice, many times. But surprisingly, this amount that is called illegal payments is going in as subsidy. And Mr. President, let me say it. There is no way the private sector will come in and establish refineries in Nigeria if there is no enabling environment. The committee has not addressed the main issue. Can we go ahead with the subsidy? Is it time for us to withdraw the subsidy completely? If you withdraw subsidy, certainly private sector will be motivated to come in and establish refineries and sell their products based on whatever the market forces dictate. But right now, Mr. President, even those people that have ventured into establishing private refineries, they have made contingency arrangements to ensure that what they refine, if they cannot sell it and make profit, they will channel it outside. This is the truth. So it is time for us to decide whether to support subsidy, withdrawal or not. And I think the report should include this very important issue. Thank you.
Senator Yusuf.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I'm looking at number 4, the findings. My comment there, I've been in direct contact with NNPC management in the Committee on Pre-Shipment Inspection, ad hoc committee on misappropriation of revenue. When we discuss about fuel crisis, now we are discussing subsidy. The fundamental issues are, if NNPC is saying that they are absorbing a cost of 216 billion, they are a gone institution because their capital base is certainly much lower than 216 billion. So for them to touch on our own intelligence to say that they are absorbing a cost, it is a lie. They are not doing that. So I think the fundamental issue, let's go to the issue. Let us liquidate NNPC. Because unless if we go into the liquidation of NNPC, we might not be able to come and understand what these people are talking about. My chairman is here. He can confirm the battle we are going through with NNPC on these issues. So NNPC, sir, whether we like it or not, we must work towards the liquidation or overhauling of NNPC. That is my simple comment. The second reason, sir, whether we like it or not, we will go for subsidy until we have a fair price of our naira. Our naira is highly undervalued. We must find a way to stabilize the value by looking at what fair exchange rate we are going to have for the naira, by looking at all the loopholes that we have in the leakages in our oil industry. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Otazi.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I'm Senator Chukwuka Otazi. Mr. President, the issue of NNPC and their extra budgetary expenditures over time is a very serious issue this Senate must address. And in addressing that, we must be very resolute. It's not something that we, we move from one end to the other without taking a serious position. Mr. President, you see, in the industry, and any The government in 2016 budget said there was no provision for subsidy. 2017 budget, no provision for subsidy. It becomes an aberration in 2018 to hear that government has paid subsidy. So the question is, who is fooling who? You know, who is confusing Nigerians? Why are we living a lie? How can we just be behaving this way? Everything topsy-turvy. How is the economy of this government, government under anybody's control? What is the role of the Minister of Finance? Do we have Minister of Finance in place in the first place? Is Ministry of Petroleum Resources on its own? Is this is just an island? Is this on its own? Does it report to anybody at all? You see, we have to address this. The person who is in charge of the economy, of the team that said that in charge of the economy of this country, what are they doing? So it's totally wrong to say that you don't have, the president will come here and read a budget, no subsidy. And then an MDA of government is doing his own thing here. And we all sit down here and look at each other. And then they will get into semantics. He will come operational costs. You find one name. Tomorrow you find another thing to hide illegality. Mr. President, this is totally wrong. If we condemn what Mr. President did in buying Tucano helicopters that will be supplied in 2020, this one is even more condemnable. And I keep saying it's very condemnable, and it's condemned by the Senate, and it cannot be allowed, and it cannot be allowed to fly. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Bintamasi.
So I just need a clarification on page 15. On the table, domestic subsidy 2010 to 2016, totaling 3.8. But if we look at the last paragraph, it is therefore curious that NNPC will, in year 2017, describe the differentials as operating costs, and a loss, but will not demand for reform. When you look at page 17 on the recommendation, item number 3, there is need for the federal government to pay the oil marketers the outstanding areas of subsidy owed prior to year 2017. I think I just needed a clarification on that, because if you said what the total amount is 3.8 billion, and by the comment there's no any other subsidy, why are we now bringing the recommendation 3 that there are some certain subsidies that need to be paid? I think I just needed a clarification on that.
Okay, Chairman, Public Accounts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll crave your indulgence that I start my reply from the last statement that was made by Senator Binta. Recommendation 3, we found it expedient to put there because the scarcity that was caused after they all testified before us, the major marketers and those that were doing importation outside of NNPC, that Darkman and Moma, mentioned very clearly that they didn't do importation in 2017 because what was owed them in 2016, a subsidy was not paid by federal government, even though they had legal demands, that were made to government for the shortfall. So that scarcity was caused because it was only NNPC in 2017 that did fuel importation. So if government really had paid them prior to 2017, all of them would have been engaged, in importation, at least to be able to curtail, the degree of scarcity that we saw in 2017. That was the case they made. And again, a lot of these independent major marketers really are Nigerians that equally came and mentioned that the reason why they have taken the backseat or why they took the backseat in 2017 was because they were not paid, the differential that existed. That's why we too put it there that government really should look at their plight, and pay them whatever they owe them prior to 2017 and 2016. That's why we made that recommendation. But sir, let me now go back to, some of the points that were raised, by my distinguished colleagues, before I answer Senator Akume. Mr. President, please, I want us to go back to our findings number 4. It's very clear that the point that we have made here is that NMPC has alluded to the volume of PMS that they imported in 2017 and how much it cost them. If anything, I think there is a need for us to go back there again. If you see on finding number 7 under the table, in 2017, NMPC imported 9.8 billion liters of PMS at the cost of $5.4 billion. And that after, that is about 1.67 trillion. That the difference that is under recovery by them, 26 naira, it came to about 171 and sold for 145, 26 naira per liter. If you multiply that, they said what they did, what they paid was 216. And we asked the question, this 216 billion, where did you get it from? They say it came from operational cost. Well, operational cost, what should have been paid into the consolidated revenue fund by you? Which means what you paid out as a differential was what you ought to have paid. And that is why, Mr. President, when you say we probably have to come up with an additional prayer, NNPC agreed that they paid this money without authorization, but that they are not asking for it. We asked, why are you not asking for it? When, of course, last year you declared a loss. Why are you not asking? Why did you come to the National Assembly to ask for this money, for it to be appropriated to you? In fact, the director of the financial whatever said, we don't want to talk about it. So they were actually playing politics with us. They don't want to name it subsidy, but they only just said it's under recovery. So, Mr. President, what of course, out of these contributions I have found expedient. And an answer to what Senator Akume said, we are asking that NMPC budget be put on hold until this money which they paid out is paid back to the coffers. And that is the point. Because NMPC must be castigated, for this infraction. It ought not to have been their exclusive right to decide to pay, more so as they were the only sole importer. If they imported the fuel and they saw under recovery, which was 26 naira, deficit between landing cost and the pump price, then of course they ought to have paid themselves. They ought to have come for appropriation, for the money now to be appropriated by the National Assembly before they are paid. But they said they are not asking for it. They don't want it. And that is why we are recommending, maybe additional recommendation, Mr. President, is that NMPC budget for this year be put on hold when it is brought until that 216 billion, which of course was overpayment from the operational cost, for the difference be refunded to the coffers of government. That is, to consolidate revenue fund. That is the argument. But NMPC certainly must be indicted for taking this unilateral decision to pay the sum of 216 billion naira.
Yes, clarification.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, just like the chairman has lucidly explained, those things are not contained here in the recommendations. For instance, he said NMPC must be indicted. We must find out where NMPC got money to pay these monies. And they are saying that even though they were absorbing a loss of 216 billion from operational costs, that they are not going to ask for any refund. What is the operational cost? That they can throw away 216 billion in a year. And then, so if there is no subsidy, and they are able to absorb 216 billion without asking for refund, it means that they may have more than 1.7 trillion. So, to be honest, sir, it would look like even the chairman was getting angry with NMPC. We were pointing out that they need to be indicted, but the recommendation here did not indict them. They have monies to refund to the federal government, to the consolidated revenue fund, but the recommendation here did not say so. I said the federation. They have money to refund to the federation, but the recommendation did not say so. They need to be indicted. Did not say so. They need to be warned.
What's your additional prayer? Distinguished colleagues, let me try and throw a bit more light so we don't get confused here. The only reason why NNPC is the sole importer is because since there's no budget, no money is being appropriated for triple RA to have money to pay for the differential. So what NNPC is doing is just putting their hands in the till and taking money from sale of crude. It's illegal. What they should be doing is there should be a budget for fuel subsidy that both NNPC, if he wants to import, or any private person that wants to import, will import, sell at a loss, and go to PRA to collect their subsidy. This is what has been practiced for over the last how many years? It is now NNPC on his own has just become a law unto itself and says that, oh, it is operational cost. It is not operational cost. And that is why we must come strongly and say that that is not it is an illegal payment. Now, the subsidy, which is a different, until we take a decision on the removal, which we have not done, then we must make sure that the payment is legal and is formalized. And that is why there was an item in the budget before called fuel subsidy, which both NNPC, private people can go and collect their differential. So for as long as we don't do that, NNPC will continue to be the sole importer. And if they're going sole importer, they're just taking the money from government's crude oil sales, which is an illegal thing. So my distinguished colleagues, so that we do not, because we are coming to the end of the budget exercise, that is my concern, that it's better we quickly rectify this for 2018 budget and stop the deception to Nigerians and do the right thing. Because by doing the subsidy also, it means private companies will participate and it will be more efficient. Now, NNPC is the only importer of PMS. And government has never been an efficient agency anyway. Who knows that if private sectors are importing, the subsidy might even come down. So to me, if we agree, let us move to the recommendations one by one. And then on the issue of sanction, we now talk about additional prayer and recommend whatever sanctions are required. But what I think is key because of time, because as we said, we're hoping that today, Thursday, the appropriation committee will submit the report. They're probably planning to lay it either next week, sometime next week, so that if we can quickly get government to come with a figure for fuel subsidy, and we know that that item is in the budget, and that stops these illegal payments going forward. That's the urgency of why I thought that we should look at this report. But if we can just go to the recommendations, after we've taken the 4 recommendations, if there are additional recommendations or additional suggestions that they should do more work on other issues, we can take them as additional prayers. So if we agree, can we go to the recommendation? Recommendation 1, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation NPC should stop the legal payments without appropriation henceforth. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer recommendation 2. Recommendation 2 will be with an amendment. NNPC, through the Mr. President, should make a formal request to the National Assembly for 2018. Yes? That is the amendment, or that will be agreed. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Third one, there is need for the federal government to pay oil marketers their outstanding arrears of subsidy owed them prior to 2017. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. Okay, I'll put the question. So I'll put the question. There is need for federal government to pay oil marketers their outstanding arrears of subsidy owed them prior to 2017. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 4, the local refineries should be given maximum attention to enable them function in full capacity. Those in favor of recommendation 4 say aye. Those against say nay. Additional prayers. Yes, Samayamu.
Thank you, Mr. President. Samayamu, Imo East. In view of the submissions of members, I think that recommendation, additional prayer should be NNPC should refund to the CRF account the sum of 216 billion naira, which has been tagged as illegally withdrawn. That is the second by additional recommendation.
or suspended.
Distinguished colleagues, let me try and throw more light on that. When we say that they should refund it, okay, seconder. Who is seconder? Yes, Baranchilia.
Mr. President, I rise to second the amendment, the additional prayer, because
no need. We just take the. No, there's no need. You are seconding the motion. No need for all right then. So those in favor of the additional prayer, the NNPC should refund the 216 billion as for illegal subsidy for 2017. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The additional prayer regards yes, Senator.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, we have a tool in our hand that we can use to look into the finances of this NNPC, which is the Auditor General of the Federation. That this Senate do mandate the Auditor General of the Federation to carry out a specialized audit on the financial position of NNPC, so that we can know the true position of the finances of this corporation within the last 5 years, and report back within 2 months to the Senate.
Yeah, but that is part of the job of the Auditor General. There's nothing. I hope the Auditor General is doing that anyway.
PC is not to carry out audit exercise. He only goes there to check the revenues and sometimes the expenditure. Auditor, the NNPC itself appoints its own auditor that report only straight to the president and not to this. Because when you see Auditor General's report, you want to look at it, you can never see the detailed audited account or activities of NNPC in the Auditor General report. It's just a makeshift report that we have. But this time around, we mandate him to go and carry out a specialized audit and report back to us within the last 4 or 5 years. We need to do that, and the chairman is there to confirm that.
Your mic. Yeah, Senator Matthew Rogidi.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm standing up in support of what Senator Lamlekon just said. You know, I think it is important to let the...
You are seconding the okay. No, let me put you, since you are seconding it, let me put the question. Those in favor of the additional recommendation that the Auditor General should mandated to carry out a full audit of the NNPC over the last 5 years. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. And just the last one, maybe we might ask this committee to go back and come back to us with a recommendation as to what sanctions should be met, since we have not taken a position on that. Should we leave it to the committee, or do we want to take it on the committee? So can somebody come up with that recommendation, and then we'll give them a time frame? It was Senator Akume that brought that up. So Senator Akume, can you come up? So let me just, I think we reach halfway. We direct that the committee should review the area of sanction and come back with a report within 1 week on sanctions to be recommended for those that have carried out such illegal payments.
Mr. President, Mr. Omar is seconding you now.
Yeah, no. I'm just giving you guidance. I'm giving you guidance.
Well, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Senator Akume, I have no. Mr. President, let me be very honest. I would have loved you to direct this report to rework this report completely. But you are now putting it to me to.
Unless because do you have a recommendation on sanction as you stand now? If you do, we can put that to the floor. If it's taken, we move on. It's one of the two. You brought it up, so we are asking either we take it now as the sanction, or we ask the committee to recommend the sanction.
to ensure maximum sanction for officers and personnel who really went against the provisions of the Act in the performance of their duty.
Who seconded this? Minority Leader?
The President.
Opposition Leader?
Senator, I'm only the Minority Leader. I think what the distinguished Senator Akube was trying to say is that there's need for sanction. But that was, in my personal opinion, I was suggesting.
Second it.
It was smiling. Do you want me to smile to second the smile?
In your capacity as opposition leader?
Minority leader. But on a very serious note, sir, there's need for a sanction. But I think that there is a.
Do you second it? Second it. Put your hand up now.
No. Oh, I was.
Okay, who is seconding? Yes, Senator Yai.
Mr. President, I'm seconding this motion that proper sanctions be taken against the NNPC. That the committee should recommend proper sanction for all this illegality that has been done.
Thank you. Additional prayer that the committee should recommend appropriate sanction for the NNPC officials who have carried out this illegal payment. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Yes, Senator Binta.
Please, I need to be guided, sir. Lord. So the other time we taught the bill or the act of the NNPC, we were supposed to look into it. And if we're looking into the act of the NNPC, because I remembered when we asked that why budgets are not of the NNPC not being brought to the National Assembly, they said the only person that has the right to the act is that of the chairman of NNPC. Now, if we are going with all what we've just enumerated now, I think we need to strengthen the act and come out with most of all those recommendations that we made mention and incorporate it into the act. And it will give us a kind of a legal instrument to work on it. But if we refuse to work on the NNPC Act, then definitely, sir, most of all the things that the recommendation will do might not go anywhere. So I just said, let me bring it to the notice if we can now put all those recommendations in the Act and allow it to work functionally. Because if we are working on the budget, then my now said the Act has not given us the power. So that's what I'm trying to see if we can now come out. No, there was a bill that needs to be amended, the NNPC bill. So we can look at it through the various committees that are saddled with that responsibility. It will give us an authority that there is an act in place and they must follow the act to the letter.
I think we'll look at that, but I suspect that the PIGB bill we just passed, which we have sent it to the President, I think has addressed the issue of NNPC's budget coming before the National Assembly.
The sanctions, the power, the Office of the Auditor General and all those things. Because even if the PIG bill has taken over, the act on the NNPC, sir, I think we have to look at it holistically.
All right. Any other? And so, additional President Yusuf here.
Mr. President, I think we talked about the Auditor General doing a comprehensive audit of NNPC. But I think in these chambers, we have few chartered accountants who are excellent, who are very, very good. I think we should constitute their own committee, call it ad hoc committee, to put NNPC on investigative inquiry, by the committee of the Senate. Because if it, just the Auditor General of the Federation doing that work, they have to work with an investigative inquiry committee of the Senate. I think it's important, sir. followed by the members. I said put NNPC on investigative inquiry by an ad hoc committee of the Senate.
Well, Senator Yusuf, you know we've already taken a decision where we have mandated the Auditor General to carry out that. So I think it's better for us, if the report of the Auditor General is not satisfactory, then we can talk about setting up another committee. And that also brings us to the issue also, unfortunately the Chairman Appropriation is not here, that we also need to ensure that the Auditor General Office is properly funded in the 2018 budget so that they can carry out some of these jobs properly. And also we'll let send Chairman Public Accounts also to pass on to the Chairman Appropriations so that they can follow up to see that government submits this budget for the fuel subsidy over the next few days so that it can be included in 2018 presentation to us next week. Thank you very much, Chairman Public Accounts, and thank you all for your contributions. Leader of the Senate. We have distinguished colleagues. Now that we have taken all items on the other paper, I hereby adjourn till Wednesday, the 2nd of May, 2018, 10 a.m. prompt.